Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Wrestlemania!
Yep, that's what we're talking about today, Wrestlemania. Today we're going to be talking all about Wrestlemania 40. We're recording this minutes after it has wrapped up. When we pretty much sat down and watched the whole thing this weekend, save a match and a half that you missed yesterday, but you went back and
I rewatched
and
both of them.
caught up on them. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of run down our thoughts on Mania as a whole, and the matches. We're just gonna go through match by match. So if you're not a wrestling fan, this week's episode ain't for you, because that's really all we have. We're gonna chat about today. But if you are interested, then yeah, let's dive in. A little bit of housekeeping first. If you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. But yeah, WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia just wrapped up. You and I, one of the, staples of our friendship, especially in those early years, was our Portillo's bets that I lost so often for like that first year we did them. I think I finally won like right before Mania in that first year. But beyond that, you got a whole bunch of free Portillos out of me.
Which was great because I was a broke-ass college kid at the time.
There you go, yeah. But yeah, it's kind of been a staple of our friendship. We both grew up enjoying wrestling. I definitely like walked away from it for a while and didn't really get back into it until I think it was circa WrestleMania 33, I think, is when the Hardys came back. Like that was my first like.
Right.
I wasn't watching that Mania, but I was watching Kind of Funny's like live stream of that Mania, and I was just kind of like following along as it was happening, and like that in particular, Hardy's coming back was like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and like, get a subscription to the network, and like I watched Mania like the following night or something like that. I watched it that week, and then just kind of was back in wrestling for a while.
I remember when that happened because I was really stoked. I got back. Yeah, go ahead and finish. Sorry, you were in the middle.
Because yeah, I think like right around that time. I think also just in the lead up to it, I fell down a What Culture rabbit hole some years ago, where like I just watched a ton of like their list videos, and that like did a pretty good job of like catching me up on like big storylines and wrestlers and stuff that I had missed, because I grew up. I was very much like in the Attitude Era, but by the time like Ruthless Aggression kind of came around, I was, older. Like basically I watched like a lot when I was in middle school, high school. I went to a show down at it would have been America West Arena at the time, back in the the late 90s, early aughts, something like that. I remember getting to see the Rock and Sock Connection do a thing.
That's cool.
I think it was it was around the same time as the infamous like halftime heat match between The Rock and Foley in like the empty arena, because they did that I think in the Tucson arena, and I was basically like they recorded it like the week before the week after they were here or something like that.
Dude, Sunday Night Heat, that brings back memories.
Yeah. And that was in particular, it was like the halftime Super Bowl halftime like match, where infamously I believe Mankind wins by pinning The Rock with a forklift.
Yes.
if I recall correctly.
That is correct. Yes.
So maybe they weren't doing Rock and Sock Connection at that time. I don't know. It's a blur. I was young. The thing I remember though, being in the nosebleeds and like turning to my mom, who was kind enough to go with me, and being like, "Can I curse? Can I like?" Because like chant, like screaming along and doing the chants and stuff. Give me a hell yeah. Can I say hell yeah? Go ahead. Kind of getting the permission from my mom. So that was kind of my history, and then really kind of coming back into it around WrestleMania 33. And while I've never actively watched like the weekly TV stuff, I very much kind of have regularly kept up with wrestling via like Simon Miller's Ups and Downs and stuff like that. So it's like that's part of my routine. So like I knew more than you did kind of about all of the storylines and stuff going into this Mania, because of Simon Miller's kind of details of the various stories and stuff like that. So yeah, we obviously did our Mania or our wrestling predictions for a long time, and then we just kind of like obviously we did the Royal Rumble together when it was here in Phoenix a few years back.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, was that 2019's Royal Rumble?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins winning the Rumble that year was just a ton of fun. At the height of Becky Mania and like the Man and stuff like that. Yeah, that was just good times, good all around good times. And obviously that was also the Kofi Mania, which like thinking back on it, like Kofi Mania didn't really start up until after the Rumble.
Yeah,
like Kofi Mania wasn't a thing yet when they were here in town, and it's just wild that like grows so quickly and so organically. So yeah, we occasionally dabble with wrestling predictions and stuff like that, but we've also just been busy, and so like we don't routinely sit down and watch the premium stuff on Peacock, but we sat down and did this. I think we did
Rumble.
We did the Rumble, yeah. But like we didn't do Elimination Chamber.
No, because that was at like 2 a.m.
Yeah, that's right. Because it was in Australia.
It was in Perth, Australia.
Yeah, the hours were not friendly for us.
We're like neither of us want to be up that early. Yeah. So
versus the upcoming stuff is going to be it'll probably be like mid afternoon or something or early, or it'll be like morning or afternoon, early afternoon for us in like France and Glasgow and Germany. Yeah, got some big events coming up. But yeah, so we dusted off the predictions. We ended up tying in a very kind of kismet kind of thing. We aligned on a lot of predictions, but like I was up one after yesterday, and then we only differed on one thing on the Sunday lineup, but you ended up getting that one thing right, so we ended up just kind of matching. So yeah, we're gonna dive in, just kind of go through match by match and discuss our thoughts. Anything you want to throw in there about like your history of wrestling before we kick off?
Absolutely. So for me, we've talked about it before, but like my childhood wrestling, my affection for wrestling started because I thought I was seeing real life Batman when Sting descended from the arena back in the 90s. And that was just like the gateway for me to get super into wrestling. Then I realized it was fake and felt betrayed and didn't bother with wrestling for several years.
Because Batman, notoriously super real.
I know, right? No, the problem was I was the last holdout. And
it's
being
real it's real to me,
it's still real to me, damn it. 100%. I was like, no. Some of it's scripted, but the matches themselves are like real outcomes, and it's just like eventually it got to a point. I think it was I could not believe that anybody who were as close as friends as HBK and Triple H were, that Triple H, like a real friendship would break down because like a guy like Triple H would like try to run over his best friend with a car. Like that broke me. I was like, this isn't real. Like,
yeah, it's that. I mean, like the whenever like it's it's fake, right? It is thrown out as like an insult to wrestling fans. I always shout out I don't remember who it was, but it's basically somebody who's like, yeah, so is Breaking Bad. That doesn't mean it's not great. Yeah, like Breaking Bad's fake too, right?
And it really wasn't until I was in my 20s, and for me it was headline popped up, Sting shows up at Survivor Series. Years, like I knew Sting never went to WWE. Sting showed up to like Survivor Series. I was like, okay, and that kind of like kickstarted like the algorithm to be like, hey, wrestling stuff, and I fell really into it. And for me, I had just done a like melodrama run with a local theater company. The Black Mustache Melodrama Theater Company, and it was just over at the Tuscany Theater over in Gilbert, and I had just done that, and so I had been on like it was like 3 months that we ran that show, where like I worked that as an actor and did the whole like melodramatic like mustache twirling type stage play, and about like the good guy, the bad guy, the booing, the cheering, and like the kind of audience interaction. And then so rediscovering wrestling after that and being like, oh my gosh, it's melodrama. And then I realized it's the most like, it is the peak athleticism of like professional sports meeting like the heights of melodramatic storytelling.
Yeah.
and in a way that feels real and connects with people. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I did like my deep dive, figuring out like, okay, what did I miss? Okay, why does everybody hate John Cena? Going through like all of this, because I only knew John Cena from when like WWE like teamed with like Fruity Pebbles, and I saw those commercials back in the aughts.
I remember just in the vein of like wrestling as melodrama. I remember, I want to say it was like probably in high school, hearing the term rope opera for it.
That's
just
a
being
good
like,
one, yeah.
that is perfect. That is like, yes,
Yeah,
it
it's
is
rope opera.
absolutely a male version of your, your daily soap opera kind of vibes.
100%, yeah. And it's like and then it was a now canceled and rightfully so person did like a video series, and I'm not going to promote it at all, but the video was like very compelling as far as like, oh, I sat my friends down and had them watch it, and they're like, we now get professional wrestling. I was like, so you guys will watch it with me? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, fine then. And what really I think sold it, and I look back and I was like, what really pulled me back in wasn't Sting showing back up again. That could have been like a one and done. I watched that WrestleMania and then it was over. It was watching the Seth Rollins Randy Orton match. Like, and kind of like being aware of what their feud was going on into it. Like Randy Orton was like, used to be the golden boy for Triple H, and now Seth Rollins there was like a rivalry there, and they were wrestling about it because they were feuding over it. And at WrestleMania, and it wasn't until I saw that match and I saw Randy Orton
the stomp into the RKO.
Yeah, like the stomp
that's the epic one. That's the move from that match, right?
Yeah. Seeing the stomp into the RKO blew me away so deeply. I was like, the drama around it, everything going on, and then just that picture perfect moment, and they land it and it works, and it's like, I was just blown away by it. I was just totally blown away by it, and I was like, I need to know. And then of course there was like that epic intercontinental ladder match where, like I told you last night, like I'll never see anybody do a ladder table spot, like where the ladder is like between like something in the ring apron and somebody going through it. Nothing will ever top Luke Harper, this massive mountain of a man, powerbombing Dean Ambrose so hard through it that it cracks the ladder in half. Nothing will ever top that, because one, nobody's going to throw that like Luke Harper, and two, nobody's going to take that bump like Dean Ambrose. So like
that was them basically being like, we're going to do this moment and get onto the highlight reels.
Yeah. This is our WrestleMania moment for that WrestleMania. And it was really awesome. I was really blown away by it. And then I like stuck around for it. And so like I was there for the Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins feud. I was there for the Big Show Roman Reigns feud. That was a thing.
I mean, I feel like Big Show's had feuds with lots of people, so that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, no, it was it was in her, like, it was cool. It was really cool getting into wrestling at that time. I think it was like a perfect time to get back into wrestling. And like, yeah, I've just been kind of like, I followed it really closely up until the pandemic. And I still find, even going back and watching old pandemic era matches, it's so, two things. One, it just does not ever stop feeling like a dress rehearsal.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't have an audience, that's gonna be the nature of that beast.
And two, it's so jarring to see a match like that's supposed to be like a big dramatic match and not feel the energy from the crowd coming across the cameras.
Yeah.
To the point where like even the Thunderdome, they're like, well, but it's faces. It's like, it's not about the faces. It's about the energy of the people in the arena. Like I get, and I'm glad they did it. I'm glad they did it. People kept working. That was such a big thing, because at the time I was also following some local stuff and seeing everybody's local stuff get shut down around the country. I worked with a guy who basically connected with a local promotion, and they did basically a promo tournament. When I was working as a contractor for Facebook, I worked with this guy, and he did like social media for the local like Arizona promotion. And like, shout out to him. He put that together. It was a pot. People were able to donate. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I was like, why don't you just do it on like Twitch? He goes, yeah, but it won't be live. I'm like, yeah, but you guys can do it live. Like, you can do it live, and like that might be able to help. Or you can do it like where it's pre-recorded and you guys just like, you premiere them live. And that way people can donate, and whoever raises more money during their segment or for their segment, like, makes it. And it went off, and it was a pretty, like, local wise, it was a pretty like good thing, which was really nice to see. But it was a tough time for a lot of folks. And so I kind of fell off of wrestling during that time. And then I think I think it was WrestleMania last year. Because I moved in here. Because we didn't watch the Royal Rumble together, and you and I were like watching WrestleMania on different, like you were there and I was here when we were watching WrestleMania, I think. Or you were in your room for that, maybe. But yeah, anyway, it was like I'm still not fully back into it week to week. You had to catch me up on some stuff like the AJ Styles LA Knight match and whatnot. But it's interesting, you being far more tuned into wrestling than I am, as kind of like a swap.
Yeah.
But it's good. I like wrestling still is really, really good. And it's great to see.
I mean, yeah, I like Simon Miller's ups and downs in particular is just kind of like Simon Miller, and then like the Cultaholic like daily news videos are just part of my like daily YouTube routine. Like I throw those on kind of in the morning, so they're all in the UK, so they're pretty much all done and ready to go when I wake up. So it's just kind of like a thing I throw on the background to kind of stay caught up on whatever else is going on so I watch, right, so I know what's going on there. I know what's going on a lot or I know like big picture stuff in AEW. I've started to have a better understanding of what's going on in like Ring of Honor, because obviously AEW has like purchased them, kind of thing. But yeah, it's just kind of like wrestling's cool and fun, and in particular, obviously all the stuff like around this one was very much like Cody finished the story, which, you know, that was very much the story of last year's Mania as well. And just the like Cody going from like this cool story where like, yeah, he was just disenfranchised at WWE, so he left, did the indies for a while, then helped kind of launch AEW, then left AEW and came back to WWE, and had like a great trio of matches with Rollins, culminating in like he tore his pec and did that epic Hell in a Cell with Rollins with the torn pec that basically like he is still riding the high of in terms of like fan support. Like I remember in AEW, he was very much like people just weren't vibing with him as like a face, or even when he kind of turned heel, they were just kind of like, he's doing his Cody Rhodes thing. It's whatever. But like showing how hard he was and just being like, well, yeah, he can't tear his pec more, so they're just going to do the match. And he's going to power through it and win. Meant that like whenever he came back, the Rumble of 2023, like he was basically a made man, because everybody was still riding high on that, and even losing at Mania last year, like just became a bump in the road, and it became a year-long story of him getting back.
Yeah, that was such a thing, because I remember tweeting out at the time like, where do you go from here? Like what? Like if you don't finish the story here, how do you finish the story? And like they and it was like, we'll talk about it. But
it was especially because it was also right on the heels of like Sammy getting over so naturally last year. And everybody being like, if they hadn't already been so committed to Cody coming in, winning the Rumble, and doing this, like Sammy should have had that opportunity, because he was the best part of the Bloodline stuff for a while there, and like it all became like supernatural and all that stuff. And so it was very much like, I wish they'd kind of pivoted and just let Sammy have that moment and let him have that win. And then like the biggest thing that suffered from Roman winning last year, I think, ended up being the Bloodline stuff, because it just kind of has largely meandered for the last year, and it's been like kind of the same like 6 matches or whatever it's been of interference is gonna steal the win away from a babyface time and time again. So like the last year with the Bloodline stuff has just kind of felt like, all right, we're just waiting for it to be done. And it became clear pretty early on of like, okay, they let Roman win so that he could, pass Brock Lesnar's reign or whatever with the title, or like pass 1,000 days, whatever, like whichever like title reign records he started kind of making, he got. I mean, yeah, it was 1,000 days was definitely the big one, I think, because as they said today, it was 1,316 days with the title. So yeah, I think the Bloodline suffered the most in particular, because there was also like all the weird like Jimmy and Jay stuff where it was like, it seemed like they had finally kind of gotten wise and turned on Roman, but then like one of them turned back, and it was like, but why? There's no reason. Like it didn't. And so they just kind of have been like meandering, whereas like Cody's been able to go off and do and grow and have kind of great matches and great story stuff throughout. So, but yeah, let's dive into just kind of match by match for this Mania. We kicked off Saturday with the Women's World Champion match between Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. Rhea ends up winning in a great match. I would say probably one of the highlight matches of the weekend, especially knowing what commentary was kind of saying of Becky dealing with strep throat all week and stuff. And obviously she's also been busy, hot on the heels of her book tour and stuff. That was where like I predicted, I guess, more with my like heart and like
I think
the part of my head that was like, maybe they're going to throw the belt on her so that she has that when she's doing more interviews and stuff like that.
When she's doing more of her book tour, because she did just like break records on the
on the New York Times bestseller. I have a signed copy of the book in my room. So yeah, shout out to the man.
Shout out to her outfit, her ring entrance outfit, where she had like pages like printed on like cloth. And was like wearing it, very much like wearing her own words. Her and Seth, very avant-garde these days.
Sure, yeah.
That's the nicest way I can put it.
But I think
because she always looks great. Yeah. Seth though,
Rhea Ripley continuing to be a dominant champion,
absolutely.
But like getting a good fight from Becky, and it wasn't just like a squash kind of thing. Yeah, it was a solid match. It does beg the question of like who's gonna be the person to beat Rhea, because she's gone through pretty much everybody at this point, and it's like I like maybe it'll be Charlotte when she comes back from injury or something like that.
I still think it's gonna be Liv. I think Liv Morgan's gonna do it. Yeah, I just don't know how.
Yeah, Liv definitely seems like the ultimate underdog that they can kind of play and build up with. Maybe it'll be she wins at Money in the Bank again and steals it from Rhea again or something like that, because that's basically what she did with Ronda.
Yeah. I mean, I would be against that. I think it will probably play better because Rhea's way better than Ronda.
I think ultimately that's actually probably what it's going to be. Is they're gonna whoever's gonna be the person that they give that to is gonna be they're gonna win the Money in the Bank, and it'll be Rhea has like a hard fought battle against somebody, like maybe it'll be Jade Cargill wins Money in the Bank. Bianca Belair and Rhea have a big hard match, and then but Rhea just ekes by, and then Jade cashes in or something like that.
Yep. For sure. Like I honestly, that could be the thing. It could be Jade. I thought Asuka was going to eat the pin last night to kind of pass off strong woman to strong woman, kind of like carry on that torch. Didn't end up going that way. Dakota Kai ate the pin like you predicted. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think spoilers for later in the podcast. Sorry. But yeah, no, when I'm looking at Rhea, I think that she's just so absolutely dominant. I don't think it would be a good idea to take the belt off of her without like a significant buildup. Yeah. Really let this crescendo. She is the big bad of the women's division. Especially with Bayley being a babyface now. So like the idea of like, and honestly, like, she's so strong. She's so unbelievably strong.
Yeah,
and
she's one. Like I remember her being kind of showcased and highlighted in like the first Mae Young Women's tournament. A number of years ago, back when she was like a blonde, basically like pitched as a new Charlotte kind of, because she was like
pitched as like the Australian Charlotte.
Yeah, and she was like 19 or something like that at the time.
Yeah, real young.
And then like seeing her kind of growth in NXT, and then obviously onto the main roster. They had that. Like, I'm glad she has recovered, because we had that I guess it would have been the pandemic where Charlotte won that year's Rumble and didn't challenge Becky or whoever else had the I don't remember who had the SmackDown title at the time, but she ended up going to NXT and challenging there for
that's right,
for that, and just being like, oh, okay, and winning, and it was like, oh, why'd you do no, Rhea should have done it. So at least they made up for it by having Rhea win against Charlotte last year and win this title that she has held.
That also kickstarted kind of but that also kickstarted her going to Raw and joining Judgment Day, and during Edge's initial incarnation of it. That was a really awesome, for somebody who wasn't keeping up with wrestling at that point. I was tuned into the Judgment Day. I was tuned into the Dom Rey Mysterio thing, the whole her picking up Dom and it being Dom and Mommy, and it was just a like we live in such a great time right now where like she is fully leaning into like the meme thing, and I think I forgot what it was where somebody's like, "Weren't you engaged?" And she's like, "We're like what? It's 2024." Like I can keep it like
I mean, yeah, she's with Buddy Murphy.
She
from AEW.
Yeah,
like they are engaged, if not, or they may have just gotten married recently. I don't remember.
No, they're still engaged.
Okay, still engaged,
they just got engaged not too long ago.
Okay, I mean, they've been together.
They were together for a very long time.
Yeah, she said on the podcast recently, it's like, you know, like Buddy, like he's all for it, especially because he. In WWE had a storyline where he was with Dom's sister, like they were like a thing, back when it was like Dom and Ray kind of thing. So yeah, it's just like
turnabout's fair play.
He's a friend of the family kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, no, the whole I love the idea of it being sure she played it off a bit like we're modern, like, and it's like great keeping it kayfabe because Dom just got married. Is the thing. Dom got married out of kayfabe. So yeah, no, I'm really still super impressed by her. I can't, like, she is just such a dominant force. I just hope she continues to have just a stellar career. And I think this is just like opening the show could have felt like a slap in the face had they not made it feel like a main event opening the show. And they really pull it off like this was a main event match.
Yeah.
They gave it enough time to breathe, enough time to develop, and they like executed on it, I feel, perfectly. So
then we go into the 6-pack ladder match for the tag team champions, which the Judgment Day of Damian Priest and Finn Balor were the like unified champions, but they split the belts, and now we have the two different champions. We had A-Town Down Under, Austin Theory and Grayson Waller win the SmackDown titles, I think. And then Awesome Truth ended up winning the Raw titles in just a chaos of a match because the other 4 teams in there were New Day, DIY, Judgment Day, and the New Catch Republic, aka Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, the former Mustache Mountain or whatever I think they used to be on the UK scene. But yeah, the insanity of a crazy 12-person ladder match is just always like when all the bodies were in that ring as the bell rang, along with like a ladder or two, it was just like, oh my God, this is gonna be nuts. And sure enough, it was nuts. But you had great R-Truth moments of, even though it's a ladder match, he did the exact same like waiting for the hot tag moment from that he did in the Rumble, also with The Miz, and then he ended up pinning Finn Balor or somebody before realizing that no, he needed to climb a ladder. But yeah, shout out to him actually ultimately getting the ladder. And then yeah, they were just like brutal spots, like you mentioned earlier. I think I think Pete Dunne threw somebody through the ladder that was hung up between the apron and the announce table, splitting that one in half. There were some nasty things. Like one of the ladders legit almost broke while a whole bunch of people were on it, and so they basically had to like swap out a ladder for the final sequence. That
ladder was bent to hell. A lot of people could have gotten injured on that.
You were excited because they made it an impromptu TLC match because they brought out the tables almost immediately because it's in Philly and EC Dub.
And then right at the very end, they snuck in some chairs. And it's like, you love to see it.
Yeah. Any other highlights or moments or anything you want to shout out about this one?
I was so close to getting what I wanted.
You wanted a weird thing.
I wanted a weird thing, but that's also because I didn't realize that they were all on
on the like coat hanger thing.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I thought they had to do it the old school way of taking the belt off.
Yeah, Cameron's prediction was
it was a carabiner that it was on.
Yeah, Cameron's prediction was that somehow R-Truth was going to win with like somebody from DIY.
Yeah,
so it wasn't going to be Awesome Truth winning. It was going to be R-Truth and Ciampa or Gargano.
Basically, that was my prediction.
Belts, yeah,
that was my actual prediction because that's what I wanted.
Yeah,
because I wanted it to be, and then for us to have a hilarious sequence of, like, R-Truth thinking that like they were like a super group now, or like Yeah, something.
Which you did again, like you not following along too closely. You didn't know that they've really been leaning into DIY at like R-Truth thinks DIY is DX.
Yeah.
And they played into it for the entrances with Tommaso Ciampa being very Triple H like, obviously, which he's kind of always been. And then Johnny Gargano getting kind of the HBK role. And there was that great moment in the match where they told Johnny Gargano to tune up the band. He does a super kick. Tommaso Ciampa does a like his whatever his final his finisher is, which I always forget. But it was basically like a pedigree version of that. So instead of just being like the pedigree, it was like, you know, feet up in the air and more close to like pile drivery kind of thing than pedigree. Then we move over into Rey Mysterio and Andrade versus Santos Escobar and Dominic Mysterio. Is the one where you got this one right, predicting that Rey and Andrade were going to win, because I was not anticipating on Philadelphia Eagles interference helping them win the match. I was anticipating what I think a lot of people were anticipating of a Carlito like heel turn. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know about the Carlito thing going on, so that I didn't have that to predict.
Yeah. You just thought it's Rey Mysterio. They're going to give him the win, of course.
Yeah. It's WrestleMania. It's time for Rey Mysterio to get his annual win.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. Anything you want to shout out about this match? This was one of those, like, I even though I don't watch like regularly, I didn't care about the build at this one at all. Especially because, as I was telling you, like, it was so like the build for this was very much LWO versus Legado del Fantasma. But Rey Mysterio was on the bench for a lot of it. So like he only just came back a few weeks ago, really, and kind of got thrust back into the mix for the Mania kind of thing. So, and then like Dom, like super last minute kind of came into the picture to, you know, mess with and basically challenge his dad to Mania. Especially like there are the rumors that it was going to be like Brock Lesnar versus Dominic Mysterio at Mania, coming out of the Royal Rumble, before Brock Lesnar got implicated in all of the Vince sex trafficking alleged stuff. So yeah, it seems like it was largely a pivot. But yeah, I just didn't particularly care about this one as much. Also, like, because you had like Andrade just came back in, and Andrade was thrown into the match Friday night, the night before, because it was going to be Dragon Lee, but he got taken out mysteriously, and then Andrade stepped in last minute. So yeah, anything about this one that you want to shout out?
Only thing I would say about this one is, like, listen, we got a lot of like fun luchador spots. We got a lot of fun, like, it's cool seeing a like very. It's always very fun to see Rey Mysterio wrestle. It's always fun to see Dom wrestle and be just like the smarmiest heel of all time. I don't think
like him and Logan Paul just need to form a team, and they will just be booed out of every arena ever.
The level of like, and you told me that last night, like you're like, I think like the mullet does half of it for you, like as far as you hating him. I'm like, because I don't know if there's ever been a heel.
Well, like I like, to be fair, I don't hate Dom. I think I think he plays the heel very well, yes. And like embraces it. And I love that like audiences boo him to the point that he can't get a word out, kind of thing.
Yes,
I think that's hilarious, and he plays into it beautifully.
100%, and it's totally different than Logan Paul.
Yeah. Like Logan Paul, I just legitimately think is a terrible person.
You do,
and it annoys me that he is as good as he is at wrestling, and is as good as he is embracing that heel persona. But
because it's so natural.
It's just who he fucking is. He's just a piece of like, which made it wild when he was like, "No, I should be the good guy." It's like nobody's gonna cheer you. Everyone hates you, you dumb piece of shit. Anyway, we'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
Oh man. I think Dom is just like the perfect heel. He knows everything he's doing. I really think that in the future we're gonna stop calling it X-Pac heat. We're gonna start calling it Dom heat.
Oh, I think it's already there.
Are we already there?
In
Great.
Some circles, yeah.
Then we are already there. Dom heat is like legitimately such great heat. Or maybe Dom heat's the opposite of X-Pac heat. Like Dom heat is like legitimately good and we love it. Mm-hmm. He's so good, and I'm looking forward because he's a legitimately like really good wrestler.
Yeah.
He has improved, like his improvement from last year's Mania where he fought his dad to this year's Mania is like astounding. He's still growing so exponentially, and he's just doing great. I think being under like kind of the wing of, a journeyman workhorse, like the journeyman workhorses like Finn Balor and Damian Priest, being able to like learn a lot more of like that, like, and learning a lot from everybody around him in Judgment Day, but especially from those two. I think like he's picked up a lot of like really good, smart, like maneuvers in the ring as far as it goes. Like really, really good stuff. But just like smarmy to a T, and I just loved it. So like I enjoyed the match. I wasn't emotionally invested in it, but which is good, I feel, because if I was emotionally invested in it, I wouldn't have liked all like the spot work going on. Spot work heavy matches, like you don't want too much of a like emotional investment in them, otherwise, because then you're taking me out of the story with all these like different people interacting with it.
Gotcha. Speaking of emotional story, then we move into Jay versus Jimmy.
I was in the bathroom for most of this.
Yeah, I think we're both probably in agreement in that the like not my brother's keeper like promo in the lead up to it.
Great.
Sadly ends up being like the best part of it. The match itself kind of ends up a little underwhelming. I
will say, hearing on Twitter that it was like disappointing, and then watching it, I was not prepared for how disappointing that match is. That match is, those two men should have had a much better match. Like it makes no sense why this match went this way.
For me, it almost like, I think a case could be made that the like, bit that they have the next night in the main event ends up being like a better, more compact and more impactful like sequence between them versus this match that was a lot of plotting, a lot of, like it becomes a super kick fest kind of thing. They did the like kind of classic like heel saying no, I'm sorry, please, like I surrender thing, and only to immediately betray the trust and stuff like that. But even there, like it ended up not working for him, and so like Jimmy still lost, which makes was a surprise.
It makes Jimmy feel impotent as a wrestler, like, and impotent as a threat, which is the opposite of what you want for him in this moment. Because he was in the Sami Zayn storyline, he was the vicious one. He was the, like, could not wait to turn on Sami one. And to see him, like, kind of, like, become impotent in that, it's like...
It's also, it's like I said, kind of in the weakness of the bloodline stuff in the last year, it is like Jay turned away and then Jimmy turned away, and so you had the like Roman versus Jay match where Jimmy then turned back to the dark side for no reason, and so it just means like he's been like, there hasn't been a rationality to his like motivations for almost a year, which is weak and frustrating.
It's very frustrating because this very much feels like when a epic tag team splits, you get you get a good run out of it and you get a bad run out of it, and it's like it's hard to break that curse. Matt Hardy versus Jeff Hardy. Matt had the rougher end of things. The Dudley brother, like the Dudleys, Devon going like preacher, didn't really work for him. And then you keep going down that list of like epic tag teams that break up. One of them always has just like, and so like No Yeet, unfortunately, I feel is going to end up in that kind of like Hall of Fame of like dookie, like just trash, like outings, like breakup outings.
Yeah. Like he hasn't, Jay, when they split up and went to different brands, Jay has had somewhat of a solo run, whereas Jimmy has very much still just been like a bloodline henchman for the most part.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure he has singles matches with whoever Roman's, about to face off with, but it's always with Solo or Roman or somebody by his side kind of thing.
It really is. And it's not great. It's just frustrating because I know both those men can wrestle better than they wrestled, and seeing them not put on a you are brothers and you are fighting, like make it brutal, make it personal, make it emotional. And it was just empty of all of that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this feels this feels fake. Like this feels phoned in. It feels like scripted up to a point, and then you like neither of you believe in this story that you're telling, and it hurts it. And then you show night 2, like you said, condensed Jay showing up and like taking Jimmy, like we'll talk about it when we get to it later, but what they end up doing in the final match of night 2 condenses that and it's like, yeah, that was good. Mm-hmm. Where was that night 1?
Yeah.
Where was this like we needed when you talk about brothers fighting, you have really epic matches, and this is very much on the lowest end of them, and I would not have predicted that coming to WrestleMania this year.
It's the kind of thing, like, I think and I tweeted out as much, like, there is a world in which this could have been like an Owen Hart versus Bret Hart kind of like WrestleMania match. And the fact that it doesn't end up coming anywhere near that, I don't know if I've watched the Matt Hardy versus Jeff Hardy WrestleMania match, but my understanding kind of the internet response is like, this probably falls somewhere much closer to that, but like definitely between the two.
I think it goes under. I was so frustrated by it. Maybe the frustration will leave and I would have a better opinion of it, but yeah.
So it ends up being like, this could have been really special, something really cool, and it's a bummer that it didn't live up to the expectations. In the same way of like, I remember a number of years back, like Shinsuke Nakamura winning the Royal Rumble, and it's like, oh, he's going to be him versus AJ Styles, rematch of their New Japan stuff, and then that just ended up being a big old wet fart.
Yep.
Feud that then went on for like 6 months. I was just like, but they like, we can see they've done this very well. Why isn't this connecting? Why isn't this working anymore? And so, yeah, it's a bummer. That at the same time, like I've seen in interviews that they've wanted this match, it's been their dream match for forever. So shout out to them getting to main event WrestleMania last year. And then kind of the following year, getting to have this big showcase of brother versus brother kind of thing. Solid stuff, even if the match ends up being a little underwhelming. We move over to the 6-women tag of Bianca Belair, Naomi, and Jade Cargill versus Damage Control, Dakota Kai, Asuka, and Kairi Sane. This was very much like, it's obvious that the heel team is going to lose, Damage Control is going to lose here.
Yes.
It's just a matter of like, who is Jade Cargill going to pin? Because obviously it's Jade's first big match in WWE.
This is them taking her by the hand and walking her into it. Which honestly, I didn't feel like she needed, because I followed her AEW run, where she was people who did not watch her in AEW are not prepared for who Jade Cargill is and what she's capable of doing. She is going to shock people so much and I feel like she did in this match.
Yeah. The concern that I think people have had and what's kind of made its way out of like reports and stuff is like, she might be a little too Goldbergy in that like she can do a few things really, really well, but if you need kind of more out of her for like a WWE style match, maybe you need a little bit more. So that's why she's there. That's why because she signed back in, January, February or something like that. And it very much became like when's she going to debut? When's she going to, make her appearance and stuff? I guess, it would have been, it was before the Rumble, because obviously she was in the Rumble. Yeah. But like the fact that she was in the Rumble and then.
Well, she signed last year with them.
Yeah, that's right. Just like the long delay of getting her there, getting her on screen. It was like, okay, the reports again are like they were trying to kind of like pull the AEW things that they don't want to bring over out of her. But yeah, I think she has incredible potential and is going to be a great dominant thing. What I would love to see is them, and admittedly this would end up feeling like they were copying AEW in this regard. But it sounds like they just announced at NXT Stand and Deliver that they're going to do a women's North American title in NXT, and it seems like they need to absolutely do that on the main roster. It's wild that they still don't have women's mid card titles.
Yeah.
Because it's that thing that like, and the fact that this is the only women's match on on WrestleMania that wasn't, title related, like compared to how many men's matches that weren't title related that we had. Like, and that's always the case, is like women's wrestling too often gets relegated to, if it's not about the title, then it's not going to main event, or it's not going to be on a pay-per-view, a premium live event card. And so throw another belt in there so that they can at least have an Intercontinental or a US kind of championship. Like, yeah, I would love to see a women's Intercontinental or women's US or both. That they can. I would rather see that than the women's tags, just because they haven't really done much with the women's tag belts.
I feel like that's probably changing going forward. The
fact that like the women's tag weren't even on the line here. Like, this could have easily, I think, been Bianca and Jade versus Asuka and Kairi for the titles, but you also had Naomi, back at the Rumble and stuff. So like, and freshly back to WWE. So they, it makes sense why they put all these people on the WrestleMania card compared to not. But yeah, the fact that like, hey, the women's tag titles weren't defended at Mania is just weird. Anyway, anything to add on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I love Damage Control. I love this kind of like this new stable that's kind of come together. Bianca, Naomi, and Jade.
That's not done. Are you saying you like Damage Control and you like them?
Yes. Okay. I like both sets of
Gotcha.
women in this match. I loved the match that they put on. I thought was pretty great. I'm like, man, out of all the matches I could have missed, I missed like one that I'm really not happy with, and one that I was like, bro, that was pretty good. Mm-hmm. Pretty good to really good. It kind of like had that range to it. I feel like it had a good solid finish. And overall, like, I'm excited to see more of Jade, which is kind of the point of that match. Yeah. Is it gave you a taste of Jade, and you're like, I want more of that.
It was I think part of it is they did this tease in the Rumble of Jade versus Bianca, which I thought that was going to be the Mania match. So when it wasn't that, I was like, okay, well, that's like, this is an interesting enough kind of different version to like incorporate everybody in there. And yeah, so maybe Jade will be and like built up to be the person that takes on Rhea or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right. And move on to Intercontinental Championship of Gunther versus Sami Zayn. Gunther having his record-breaking longest Intercontinental title reign finally dethroned by Sami Zayn in a moment I was admittedly not expecting. I predicted Sami, but I was not expecting it to actually be a correct prediction. So shout out to that.
Yeah, shout out to you being right on that. Gunther, I thought would have don't know what he's like. I think this is where he now transitions to main event level.
Yeah.
Is kind of the thought. I didn't think that he was like, let me put it this way. I did not think the main event was ready for Gunther. Where I feel like it's still really busy up there, and I would love to see more of a Gunther being like keeping things neat around him.
Yeah. I think part of that like played into my prediction was, I think coming out of WrestleMania, especially because we had like this, like Chad Gable was helping Sami Zayn kind of like prepare for this match, and very much it throughout the Gunther reign and last year, especially, like Chad Gable was very much the underdog that people were like, oh, it'd be really cool if he was the one to dethrone Gunther. Now that Gunther has, defeated the Honky Tonks record and whatnot, it'd be really cool if you give it to Chad Gable and let Chad Gable finally kind of have this breakout thing. And he had great moments with Gunther. So Sami Zayn kind of getting that slot and getting that moment at Mania, still allows, and they kind of tease it in the pre-match thing of like, all right, you owe me a favor. So presumably it's going to be, okay, at Backlash, it's going to be Sami versus Chad Gable or something like that. And maybe Chad wins because he knows, where Sami is weak or whatever.
Yeah. I could see that being the case. Go ahead, finish.
And then, so you have that, set up for the future of the Intercontinental title. And then, you have Gunther. It was very much like, if Cody wins, Gunther is immediately there as like a next challenge, next threat for Cody. And you can even tie that into the fact that Gunther has been eliminated by Cody in the last two Rumbles, including last year's Rumble, where Gunther went from the number one position all the way to, being eliminated by Cody in the last moment, I think.
Yeah.
And then again in this one, I think it was basically like the final the final four where I think Cody, Gunther, Drew, and Punk. And once again, Cody eliminated Gunther. So I think Gunther, now that he's not kind of with the Intercontinental title, can move up to the main event and face off against Cody, especially because there's so much going on with the other belt between Punk, Drew, Seth, and now Damian Priest in the mix and all that stuff. I think there's ample opportunity on that side of things, whereas Cody was going to need new challengers anyway. But solid match, and Sami Zayn is just one of the all-time great underdogs. Probably my favorite moment was the moment right before he goes out, where KO's there as the final all right, I'm here to go get this done. He gives that final kind of pep talk right at the end. Just Sami fighting back from Gunther, just being super heel and playing it up wonderfully.
Doing great heel shit. You love to see it.
Yeah. Anything to add?
No, I don't have anything. I think that yes, I do have something to add. My feelings about this match are I am happy that Sami won. I think that it was a really solid match. I feel like it went on. It was everything you wanted it to be. It was powerful Gunther, really taking it to Sami, but being way too overconfident, letting way too many moments of weakness show up. And Sami was able to take advantage of it because Sami was prepped and ready. I'm excited to see where this goes, because when Chad Gable before their match starts is there, shakes his hand and he says, "All right, are we ready to go?" And Chad goes, "I'm not going out there with you. You can do this.
Yeah.
You've always been able to do this." This cool Apollo Creed in Rocky 3, Apollo Creed version of that. I was the previous guy who went up against him, but now I'm training you. I'm giving you all my tips and everything, and you can do this now. And it being such an emotional thing for Sami and his wife and everything, they really brought the family aspect into it.
Yeah.
Shout out to Sami's wife sitting next to Kevin Owens' wife at ringside. That was fun.
Presumably, were you able to verify that?
I believe it was the case. I didn't verify it, but
it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
I follow Kevin Owens on social media long enough that I'm pretty sure that's his wife. If it's not, totally fine. She didn't impact the match, but I just thought, oh yeah, no, because famously, as part of their feud, Sami was the best man at Kevin Owens' wedding. Sami's family and Kevin's family are literally super close. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was. I'd be more surprised if it wasn't his wife.
Yeah.
That being said, and then of course Kevin being the last one he talks to before he heads out. Foreshadowing there, but the whole aspect of the match, as far as it building Sami Zayn back up from where he was after he was brutalized by the Bloodline and kind of left as kind of a mess and a wreck. Storyline wise, where does Sami Zayn fit into the WWE universe at that point, right? Where does he fit into storylines? He's just kind of he's just kind of a schlump of a person at this point. And then seeing him kind of make a comeback and get the proper motivation back and getting into, by the way, I'm not saying this is definitely the case. This was my impression based off of how the promos and everything built up. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Sami Zayn had a post Bloodline feud, had a significant feud.
He and KO won the tag titles of last year's Mania, and they were the tag title champions for a while there. And then I think Sami was out with injury for a little while.
Oh, was that it? Okay.
I think maybe because him he made a return at the Rumble. When he came back at the Rumble, that was a return from some time away. But he's kind of been in and around the picture since because they lost. Sami and Kevin lost the titles, I think, to
Judgment Day.
To Judgment Day.
Yeah.
Who then won? Who then lost them to Jey Uso and Cody, and then Judgment Day and ended up ultimately winning them back. And
there you go.
Was holding those titles. But yeah, Sami and KO lost the titles and then were pretty much split on to do different brands
Gotcha.
relatively early post Mania last year. I would say probably by like SummerSlam.
Thank you for like correcting me because, like I said, this was the impression the promo gave me.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing, like, yes, I forgot about like, there is that whole tag team thing that he was doing and everything. So that's my bad. But overall, like the impression I got for it though, made it feel like more impressive than that was kind of the story they were telling. I really liked it. I thought it was a great match. That's all I have to say about it at this point.
Yeah. Cool. And then we go into the main event of a Saturday night, The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. That was just one of those like bonkers matches. I think the highlight that certainly popped both of us the most of anything was Rock screaming at the ref, if you count, you're fired. The Rock doesn't fuck around kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the censors being too late on the bleeping. Was just like the if you count, you're fired got us to laugh. And then the follow up of I don't fuck around was just like, oh my God. Love this heel Rock. Love the way that they were able to pivot from, because for the longest time it was like, oh yeah, it would be great to have The Rock come back and face off against Roman, but like it took too long for that to happen.
Yeah.
So that by the time it finally did, everybody was like, no, we don't want that. We want Cody and Roman, especially if you're going to do this right after Cody wins the Rumble. Why
would you do that?
What sort of nonsensical booking was it that like, okay, you're going to give Cody the Rumble win, but your plan is to have Roman versus The Rock at Mania. I love that like they pivoted on this, and certainly the behind the scenes of WrestleMania ads that they've been pushing very much are confirming that, that was a pivot. This was not our plan, our original intention, all that stuff.
Yeah, no. The whole, I'm going to finish my story, but not at WrestleMania. And everybody's like, why the fuck not?
What?
What the
boo? No, we want Cody.
You can't tease us for a year that you're going to finish it and then not. Like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like this was one of those where like, since they tied this to, okay, if Rock and Roman win, it's going to be bloodline rules in the Cody Roman match the following night, it was a foregone conclusion that like they were going to win for this. It was just a matter of like, okay, what else is going to happen in this match? And how much of this match is being done to protect The Rock, I think is certainly a thing I was thinking about a lot of this, especially because like, Dwayne came in a few times and like seemed winded just from his promos and like running down the ramp and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, does he have like the stamina to still do a wrestling match versus like, film, which is a very different beast.
And I think we saw that with like kind of his transformation over the last like couple months.
Yeah. Him going full like final boss, super Hollywood Rock, has been a ton of fun to watch, like on social media side of things.
Yeah, it's that on top of like his actual like physical work. Like you could see he dropped a lot of weight. Like he dropped a lot of like he slimmed and toned down his muscle a lot. Because like if you were to like look at, and somebody did like a comparison on social media of like The Rock at like The Rock before and then The Rock at Mania, and it was like you can tell like he spent those 12, like when they were like talking about his training, like his training camp, 12-week training camp, he really slimmed down for that. And not to say that he was fat, like to say he was super bulked up because that was the Hollywood aspect of it, like the really like swollen muscles and everything, and like it looks great on camera, but like that doesn't move well.
Yeah.
It doesn't move well. It doesn't like it shoots. It's great for camera. It's bad for actually wrestling. It's why bodybuilders don't always, and for the most part, don't make it their way to being great wrestlers. Because it's just the body's not built, like wrestling isn't built for that.
Yeah.
And so like I look at like that, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he slimmed down a lot. And I felt like, okay, we did this as a also like Dave Meltzer said, like rumor is that it was supposed to be a much shorter match.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, this the fact that this was the second longest match in Mania history, second only to an hour Iron Man match, is absurd.
Yeah,
and like that's my biggest gripe with this match was that it was way too long. There's way too much padding in there. There's like a lot of like holds, a lot of just kind of like stare downs with little action in between. Yeah, it was definitely a week. And like I was saying tonight, the whole sequence where like they split off and you had Rock and Seth go out into the crowd and you had Cody and Roman go up, up the ramp, like that entire sequence felt like it could have been taken out of the match and you wouldn't have lost anything. Like nothing was added except time by doing that.
I liked it though. That's the thing. I like that.
But it's just them. I mean, it's I guess it's Attitude Era of like, yeah, Rock, taking Seth out in among the crowd and kind of just doing the beat up and stuff like that. But like there wasn't any like spots versus the Roman Cody match tonight that like they went out to the same kind of part of the crowd and had that spot on the booths or table or whatever that was there that was the suplex.
I get there was no spots, but there was so much character work and I love that. So
I didn't
fair.
see that character work.
I just
like the best thing of that was Rock basically saying like, if you count out, you're fired. Like,
there's that, but then it's like as soon as they go out there and The Rock is like doing old school classic, take a drink, like spit it in your face, like a lot of like that like Attitude Era stuff. I pop for that. I love that. I think that was definitely not prepared because like you had the cutting back and forth that didn't work. For me, that was the problem, is that whatever was going on with Cody and Roman at the time was not nearly as interesting as what was going on with Seth and almost said Cody again, but for Seth and The Rock, which is a weird thing. Like that's still breaking my brain a bit, is The Rock wrestling against Seth Rollins.
I would argue it'd be interesting to go back and rewatch it. Because the few times I did, like, because the showcase of the picture-in-picture kind of thing was centered on, like, the bigger image was The Rock and Seth, and the smaller one in the corner was Cody and Roman. But the few times I checked that one, they at least were doing more interesting moves and more interesting wrestling versus, like, punches in the crowd or through the crowd kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, like, I would be curious on a rewatch if your statement there actually does hold up, if they were doing the more interesting thing, or if it was just framed that they were the spotlight.
For me, it was more of, I was referencing before they did the picture with picture, like the side-by-side picture. I meant like when they were cutting between the two scenes. I felt more compelled. I'm like, I don't want to miss anything that's going on with Seth and The Rock outside. Because that's like, there's activity there. There's people there. There's people reacting to the crowd. Like, there's a lot of that aspect to it that I really, really enjoyed. And so like I enjoy that, and there's a lot of people who, like, a good friend of ours, Jarrett Green, said, you cut 20 minutes out of that, and that's like a great match.
Yeah,
and I'm like, sure, but like I think there is bloat there, but I feel for me the bloat is really more towards the beginning. A lot of like the kind of like slow pace of it, like for how it devolved. I feel like the setup for kind of like the falling apart of the match, The Rock saying like, if you count us out, like, I'll fire you. That aspect of it, I felt should have come a bit earlier. I just felt like, I don't think this needed to be this long, but for me, the parts that I wanted to take out are kind of like the slower beginning parts.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also one of the reasons I really like this match is because it didn't go any way I expected it to go. I expected it to be a much more traditional tag match, in the sense of trying to protect The Rock. The Rock, he's gonna get gassed early on.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna have like Roman in there really like doing all of that. The Rock will come in for like some big spots. Like your kind of typical older kind of like quote unquote legends style tag match that you would expect out of that. And for it to like devolve into the way that it did, and I feel like The Rock had a lot more gas in him than I was expecting. You have like just a lot of fun character moments for heel Rock. Final Boss Rock is probably now my favorite incarnation of The Rock. Cause he's so much fun. The Rock like busting open Cody Rhodes and rubbing his blood in a belt and being like, I'm going to give this to your mother. And then at WrestleMania pulling out the belt and being like, I'm going to put your son's blood on this and give it to you. Like such a deranged nut job stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just loving this. So like there's aspects of that I loved. Or like when he looks at, like, he's about to do the people's elbow and he looks at her and he goes like, this is for you, Mama Rhodes. And it's like, just so good. And so getting to see Seth like systematically taken apart in such a big way to set up like the second night storyline for Seth, which is great.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on with a lot of that I just really, really love. And so I think I will rate this higher than probably a lot of other people will. But like my issues with this match are very much not similar to yours. And that's fine because we both got what we wanted out of this match.
Yeah. I think the issue ends up being similar to I think what used to be the second longest WrestleMania match was Randy Orton versus Edge when Edge came back at the Rumble, and then like they had their Mania match in the pandemic era where it was like a last man standing kind of beat the 10 count match, and it was just the kind of same thing of like it plodded along. It was slow plotting to get where it was. It wasn't like frenetic action, or it was like bursts of action and then just a whole bunch of slowness.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. I think there were some like slower parts that I think were just needed because The Rock isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I get why it was structured this way. I just didn't think it needed to be nearly as long as it was.
But maybe we don't get these classic moments we're going to get now of The Rock telling the ref that if he counts him out, he's fired.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think you could still have had those moments just without I mean, you could even still had them split and like, go into the crowd, go up the ramp, but not as far or not as long. Like, why did that need to be, 5 minutes versus like a 2-minute chunk of the match or something like that? So yeah, I like there were still things to enjoy here. But and admittedly, one of my favorite moments of the match ended up being when The Rock was holding Cody up for a spear, and then like Seth tackles Cody out of the way, so Roman spears The Rock, and just The Rock selling it with the same level of commitment that he used to sell like the stunners for Austin, of like just so over the top. I loved like seeing that,
that was so good.
That image making the rounds today and stuff like that.
The like look of as he's hit, it's like this betrayal of like what have you done to me?
This is the hurt. This hurts me more than anything has ever hurt me before kind of moment. Yeah,
it's so good. He's still so good. Like, it's great to see. Like, he is not just still great on the mic. He's like, and the thing is, The Rock was always spectacular on the mic, but it was really him selling in the ring that made him so great. Like the matches was Stone Cold.
He got a running elbow drop over. Like that's the whole, like, that's always the joke is like neither of his finishers are particularly like physically taxing. It's his charisma he's always had like a 24 charisma or something like that.
Yeah. He has is falling Uranagi is not nearly impressive as like a standing Uranagi. Because a standing Uranagi, like you literally take somebody and you like throw them on the ground in like a very definitive way. And his falling one, somehow he made it more dramatic. Like the falling Uranagi through a table.
The rock bottom. Don't be pretentious and call it a falling Uranagi. It's the rock bottom.
Fair enough.
Fucking Mark.
The Uranagi is literally like one of my favorite moves of all time. Between that and the Scorpion Deathlock, those are like my two favorite moves of all time. There's a reason why they're always my finisher moves in Create a Wrestler. The rock bottom is just epic and awesome. But it's not because it's an impressive move. It's because he makes it feel that way.
Yeah.
He like none of his moves are great. Like you're right, none of them are great. But he gets them over because he's so charismatic.
Yeah.
And like that charisma like does so well. And so getting to see that showcased again, man, it felt great. It felt great. It made me feel like man, there were moments where you and I popped off during that match.
Yeah. The prediction that I had made that you kind of took
I piggybacked
was like that The Rock will pin, like, because it was like, okay, who pins who? Is The Rock going to pin Cody? Is The Rock going to pin Seth? Is Roman going to pin Cody? Is Roman going to pin Seth? And I was like, I think Rock pins Cody because that is just one more nail in the coffin that Cody has to overcome. He lost night one. It wasn't that Seth lost night one. It was that he lost night one. And then you get that like, well, The Rock was able to finish the job. So if they want to do Rock versus Roman somewhere down the line, if they wanted to tease that, like, the breaking up of the bloodline or whatever, and maybe that is where they'll go with this. Maybe it will be like Dwayne kind of goes back to Hollywood for a little while, but they set this up at SummerSlam that it's going to be Rock versus Roman. I think you can kind of play in of like, well, I pinned him. Where were you? On night 2 kind of thing.
I got the job done night 1. Why couldn't you do it night 2?
Yeah. You've disgraced the bloodline in losing to the ultimate Cody crybaby. You've disgraced the bloodline. You are no longer the tribal chief. Is I think where
tribal
civil
war
where the Rock can go with it, kind of thing, and we can finally get kind of the dismantling of the bloodline.
Dismantle the bloodline and give us a Rock versus Roman at SummerSlam.
Yeah,
but way better than Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania.
Yeah, but I mean, like. The final imagery that they had of like Cody sitting up in the ring with the out of focus like Roman and Rock shot behind him, basically identical to Cody in the ring at the end of Mania last year, was very much like they knew what they were doing in how they framed some of these shots, and they did a good job with it. So yeah, like all in all, I think night 1 of the 2 wins out for me, just because I think it had like more kind of top to bottom quality compared to what we'll talk about here in night 2. It had more bangers in its lineup, even with an overly long main event and the underwhelming Uso battle. Everything else for me was very much like top tier, great stuff. So
the Uso match might bring it down for me, but like we'll talk about it after we do the roundup on all the matches.
So yeah, then we get into night 2, kicking off with Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins. Very much fully leaning into how banged up Seth was from last night.
We have to start with the entrances. Like Drew McIntyre's what I expect out of a WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. He's Scottish. His theme is Scottish. His whole thing is he's Scottish. They have bagpipes and dudes with swords doing like a kind of like. He walks through, they cross the swords above him. As he walks past them, they bring the swords down. It's a very cool imagery. It's stoic. It's Scottish as hell. He gets in the ring and it's great. Seth Rollins comes out
with a mummer band.
Basically
it was like, I long for the days of Adam Rose and the Rosebuds.
Just
which is very much a reference from a time I was not watching, but especially because like Becky Lynch was one of the Rosebuds at a Mania, I think it's very much like in the zeitgeist because she references in her book.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I had just started getting back into wrestling when Adam Rose was no longer like he was on his tail end of the WWE.
Yeah.
He was tag teaming with Fandango. Fandango kept going as he should. Fandango was and continues to be amazing. No matter where he goes, he is still Fandango. The whole Rosebud Adam Rose thing, or maybe he was feuding with Fandango at the time. There we go. Bad feud though. Holy crap, that was a bad feud. Adam Rose, I've never been a fan. And his whole gimmick was dumb as hell. And so getting this, like, it's a mummers band.
Because Fandango is such a great gimmick. As somebody, I came in when it was Breeze and Fandango, and they were like the fashion police.
So
like that was the gimmick of the year for a while there, and like
absolutely.
Just like
Fashion Files.
Those were. I wasn't watching like the weekly stuff, but I would like watch those videos on YouTube, and they were just always like fun, hilarious spotlights.
Yep, Fandango and Tyler Breeze initially started as a rivalry.
I believe it. I mean, as many of these, as like The Bar did, and all these other things.
Absolutely, it's one of those rivals turned tag team team legends.
Yeah. Anyway, Seth's entrance, flamboyant as all hell.
You mentioned night 1 when he came in. You're like, I feel like his daughter drew his outfits.
Mm-hmm.
And never was that more true than the second one, where she said, I want you to have a bird. And he goes, oh, great, Philadelphia, the Eagles. She goes, no, an owl. So he just has an owl on his chest. And he has vines coming off of his butt. And I'm like, this is god-awful. But, I mean, I don't understand fashion. I'm a t-shirt jeans kind of guy. So what the fuck do I know? But, yeah. And then he gets in the ring and he's taped up to hell, and just immediately it's like, so I tweeted out, I was like, It's like somebody turned on like unlimited fish.
Yeah, it was very much reminiscent of the Lesnar Goldberg WrestleMania match from a few years ago, where it was like, okay, like that was like a sub 5 minute match, but it was basically like 2 moves. It was jackhammers and it was F5s and suplexes and spears, I guess. So 4 moves total. But yeah, this was very much the same thing of like, yeah, we had 3-4 claymores. You had a couple stomps.
He had more than 4. He finished with 4 claymores. He had more claymores before then, though.
I mean, like he starts with a claymore, and then we had like multiple claymores throughout the match.
Claymores turned
and like
into,
some of them didn't connect, kind of thing.
Yeah, some didn't connect, some were reversed. Like a lot of finishers coming out, pedigree, curb stomps, like all sorts of stuff. Interesting enough, I appreciate that Seth didn't do some of his more like knee-based maneuvers, like a sling blade or a some of his more like high-flying maneuvers either. No frog splash, no phoenix splash, etc. Yeah. So not really like, so we got a very limited Seth Rollins repertoire as far as moves go, but I feel for a good reason.
And could be entirely a legitimate like work reason, not a shoot reason. Not
you don't
not
usually have
K
tape strapped to unless you have like legitimately like hurt yourself. So for people who don't know, K-tape is a tape that like it lifts the skin and allows for easier blood flow and helps your muscles heal faster. Obviously also CM Punk was on commentary for this. Because he's had his own issues with both, and presumably the original plan was Seth versus Punk at Mania before Punk got injured in the Rumble by Drew. And then Drew ran with that injury.
Yeah, Drew ran with it.
God, so
a highlight being like, right at the gate, Drew runs over, grabs a phone, and we're like, what's he doing? Is he taking a selfie? What's going on? And then like the whole internet sees that he tweeted out, bored at work, lol, 1 minute ago, and just being like, oh my God, this is perfect.
So that got me to follow.
Wonderful.
I'm following Drew McIntyre now. Like, it's so damn good.
He's been an all-star on the social media on this whole build up, especially because like the other aspect of this build is very much like even before the Rumble and before a lot of his character in the last 6 months was very much like tweener justify, like,
yes,
I'm mad at you because like the bloodline screwed me over. I'm not forgiving that, Jey Uso. Like you fucked me in Wales. Like I don't forgive you. I had my WrestleMania moment, but it was for nobody, and my WrestleMania moment was robbed from me because of that and stuff. And it's like everything he's saying is true and accurate. He's just saying it with like the malice behind it and stuff like that, and it's just been great. And so like him getting to marry that with the like Punk killer kind of stuff, and
because he's also the Beast Slayer. He's the last person to face off against Brock Lesnar, presumably, possibly forever. Well, probably not. They'll bring him back. Who beat Brock Lesnar?
No, because like Brock faced off against Omos at Mania last year.
Oh, that's true. He
like
did.
He hasn't like
championship wise.
I mean, champion because championship wise, Brock I think won it back, right? I mean, Brock Roman won the championship from Brock.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, then I think McIntyre must have lost it back to Brock then.
Like McIntyre lost it to various people and stuff, and it made its way.
It was the pandemic era. It was messy.
Yeah, I think. Let's see. I think Drew lost to Bobby Lashley.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
With like
the Almighty
assistance from the Miz or something, because Miz cashed in against Bobby Lashley and then immediately lost it back to Bobby Lashley. It was a whole thing during the pandemic.
There you go. So you had McIntyre.
Because the whole thing was Mania back with audiences. It was Bobby Lashley versus Drew, and it was like, oh, are they going to let Drew win it so that he gets that win in front of a crowd? And then he didn't. He lost, and Bobby Lashley like retained, and it was like, oh, well, that's a wet fart of like an opener match or something. But yeah, anyway, but yeah, this was just a ton of fun. Yeah, finisher spamming, absolutely. And that's all it needed to be. Like when it legit started out with like Drew immediately gets the Claymore and almost gets the 3. I was like, if they had done that, it still would have been satisfying.
Absolutely.
Because it played into everything that the buildup has been of like Seth, you shouldn't be worrying about what Cody's dealing with. You should be focused on me. I'm going to be your challenger at Mania. It annoys me that you're doing this. I want you at your best. I'll take advantage of you if you're not going to be at your best, though.
You're burning the candle at both ends, and I will take advantage of that. I will destroy you.
Yeah.
And he does.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. And then he takes the time to...
go
ahead.
Post match, I just want to shout out. I loved the camera catches Seth saying, like, you fucking deserve it kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, and it could be, you know, I suppose you could say it like in kayfabe, kind of like, all right, you deserve whatever's coming to you, you know, like deal with it. I hope you're ready kind of thing. But I think it was like, because we also see Seth kind of have this moment at the end with Cody of like, it's your turn now. I like the fact that Seth has been like a steward for this new championship and made it meaningful and made it feel like it was worth something instead of like a consolation prize because they decided to fold both titles into Roman and just weren't going to get rid of them.
I mean, this is also the same thing that they trusted him with when he won the Universal title. The Universal title only means anything because Seth Rollins held it. Finn Balor won it.
I was going to say it was supposed to be Finn Balor, and then because
Seth injured him.
Seth injured him, but then KO won it after that.
Yeah, KO won it after that.
Seth wasn't the...
Oh, you're right. KO's the one that held it for such a long time. I take it back.
I mean, like Seth eventually, I think, won it at some point, but...
KO made that belt mean something. Yeah, so I think when it comes down to it, you have Seth... But I took it... In kayfabe, I took it more as... not like you deserve what's coming to you, but it's like, no, you deserve this.
Yeah,
like, both kayfabe and on a personal level, it's Seth Rollins and Colby, whatever. I almost said Colby Smothers, but that's an actress. Colby, which is his actual name. It's both the actor, it's both the character and the actual wrestler.
Yeah,
telling you, hey, you deserve this
it was the camera catching, much like they did a few years ago in the Sasha Banks Bianca Belair moment. Like after Bianca wins that match, like Sasha crying happy tears for, you know, Bianca's win and all that stuff. And so I love that moment. I love that, like, we got to see that very much. Yeah. Like Seth passing the torch effectively and just being like, all right, it's yours now. Probably knowing that Drew's about to get cashed in. So it's still a beautiful moment.
Knowing as a wrestler, like knowing backstage, like, yep, the plan is this.
I mean, or maybe they didn't. Like maybe, I mean, like, nobody knew Seth was going to cash in, you know, back when he did at Mania. So
yeah, but that was so different though. That was such a that's still to this day, like, was that an audible or not?
I mean, all accounts say that like that call was made an hour into the show. Yeah. Like the WrestleMania was already happening when they called Seth Rollins in to say, like, here's what we're going to do. You're going to, and it was basically like, you know, the four of them in the match or whatever, or the three of them in the match and Vince or whoever.
I remember because like the post of that, Roman Reigns' dad almost attacked Vince.
Yeah. Roman's dad was pissed.
Yeah. And Roman had to tell him like, no, I knew it was happening, but like, you know, yeah, no, like that's and also it's,
but yeah, I predicted right before. I was like, oh, like that's the question is, do they have Drew win and hold the title and defend it in Glasgow, or do they have Damian immediately come in, cash after the fact, and then it becomes Drew fighting for it back and maybe trying to get like a win in Glasgow. And so I liked that, I liked that he gets his beautiful moment. He gets his win. He gets like the adulation. He has that moment with his wife where we find out, okay, they weren't just a plant. He wasn't just stealing somebody's phone for the tweet. It was his wife and presumably brother-in-law or something like that. And then he goes over and just like taunts Punk, who then like attacks him, debilitates him, and then Damian Priest's music.
If he doesn't go over and mess with Punk, he goes backstage. He keeps the belt. He's still champion. He in his just meanness to Punk, goes over there to taunt him.
Yeah,
his hubris. It is just such a wonderful moment of like comeuppance, and he deserves every bit of it. Because Punk takes off his brace and then uses it as a weapon. And like hits him over the head with it, and then Damian Priest comes up with the Money in the Bank briefcase, does the classic, hits the guy with the Money in the Bank briefcase, gives it to the ref, cashes in now, gets him in there, does his choke slam.
Yep.
And as Twitter quickly called him, bisexual Undertaker is now the world heavyweight champion.
Sure. Yeah. And then shout out to Drew's quote tweet a few hours later of his like lol board at work or whatever.
Yeah,
that just says fuck.
It's so good. He's still like, it's like, I'm so glad I followed him so I didn't miss that. But like, he's so damn good. And here's the thing, before this feud, before this whole thing with Punk and everything, I honestly could have told you I couldn't care less about McIntyre. Mm-hmm. McIntyre has made me a massive fan.
Yeah, this is some of the best work of his career.
Yeah.
Like in particular, there was a wonderful like 3-way promo between Rollins, Punk, and McIntyre a few weeks ago in the lead up to Mania that like everybody was firing on all cylinders. Everybody had good beats. It was where Punk was announcing that he was going to be like commentating, but it was very much like, setting him up as a potential guest ref, which would have also been like an interesting thing. Especially, I think and maybe this is because I don't particularly have an affinity or care about Punk's commentary. Like, I just don't like Punk in general. I think Phil is an asshole by most accounts.
By just about every single goddamn person's account, Phil Brooks is a massive asshole.
Yeah. But the like, I think you could have had, it could have been almost more interesting if he had been there as the guest referee for the Rollins and McIntyre match and like begrudgingly counted the pin for McIntyre. And then so joyously counts the pin for Damian Priest, who comes down and cashes it. Like they could still do the exact same thing and have like Punk basically like turn on him and like give him a bit of a beating. But I imagine they wanted they wanted Punk on commentary to be able to kind of have those moments and stuff like that.
Which honestly I did not feel like we needed him on commentary.
Yeah.
I will take Corey Graves over Punk on commentary any day of the week. That being said, but that's also because I also too think Phil Brooks is a massive asshole.
Yeah.
I've never been a CM Punk guy because I've missed his entire run.
Yeah, I heard about him via the pipe, or I heard about the pipe bomb when I started getting back into and watching those What Culture List videos and stuff like that.
The people who still cheer for CM Punk are like the people who were with him throughout his run, and like I respect that. That's totally fine. But
I will say, just for the historic nature of it, I did sign up for a 7-day trial of Hulu Plus when he signed with AEW, or like when he debuted with AEW, to watch that live. But then it just was like, I don't really care. And then him getting like injured almost immediately and then like gone for a long time and then comes back and brawls and gets injured again. And it's just like, oh my God.
This is my thing.
And then he comes here to WWE and gets injured almost immediately. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You are making a strong case for the idea that karma exists, dude.
Yep. One, karma exists. And two, you are so banged up. It's my number one reason why like I don't want to see Randy Orton wrestle anymore. Randy Orton, who famously like was taking out the trash one night, and when he lifted up the trash lid on his like trash container, he like threw out his shoulder. Like he dislocated his shoulder. Like that man, like, and then he put Cody on his shoulders, and it's just like I'm like, ugh. Anytime I see that man's shoulders move, I freak out because I'm like, it could happen at any time.
Yeah, well, he and Punk both like returned at Survivor Series, and like he'd been gone for the better part of a year, if not a full year plus. On like in a like his back was so messed up he didn't know if he'd ever be back, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that the cash-in, Damian Priest, who like I've never been the biggest fan of him, but like I think he's good.
Mm-hmm.
I think I always forget how tall he actually is. That's the thing. He's very like he's deceptively tall, which is weird because he hangs out with Tom Mysterio and Finn Balor, and so I'm like, how do you hang out with those two guys? And then I forget how tall you actually are.
Yeah,
like it should be the opposite. I should think you're extremely tall all the time, and then be surprised by how short you are. But it's the opposite effect, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because he does these choke slams and things. I'm like, these are big man moves, and it's like, no, Damian Priest is a big guy.
Yeah, indeed.
He's a very tall man. I don't understand why I never remember that he's tall.
Yeah. Because it was very much like when he won Money in the Bank, like people wanted LA Knight to win, and then he won, and they were like, all right, well, I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
Like anybody else winning other than the two of them, I think would have been like a big like boo, like, you know, burn the building down kind of thing. But Priest like winning, they see him as a, you know, future main event guy. Obviously, he's the last. I feel like the last few Money in the Bank cash-ins have failed. So like him getting a nice successful one, solid. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what he does with it. And if it's interesting, I started to, I was thinking about this with like the IC stuff, because Roman and Gunther have had such long title reigns. I think we're going to be in a period where it's a lot of shorter title reigns, or a lot of like, you know, we're going to get a lot of people kind of swapping the belts, which I personally love. Like I miss the hot potato belts movement of like the Attitude Era. That gave you, you know, and I guess this went into like Ruthless Aggression too, but like that gave you so many title reigns among people that, you know, don't amount to more than a year total or something like that. But just having more people get to be the champ, instead of like, okay, you won, now you're going to be the champ for 6 months while we build up, you know, your you know, replacement or whatever. So I hope, you know, I fully expect, or would not be surprised if, you know, Damian doesn't have this title long, especially because even in this belt, it was like he's only the second person after Seth has had it for the better part of the last year. So letting kind of having some kind of like little transitional championship stuff, but still have like a lot of good talent in the upper echelons of the roster, I think is just going to spread the wealth a little bit. So yeah, we'll see where Damian Priest's new reign goes, and I like that him and Rhea still can, you know, hold Judgment Day together, because there's very much been like is Judgment Day going to split up kind of thing, but they still have both of those titles among them, even if they don't have the tag title anymore. So yeah. Maybe we'll see Finn partner with Dom now to try and like win one of those titles back and get all of the gold back into Judgment Day once again.
That'd be cool.
They had that for a little while. They had
did Edge have the championship?
No. So it was none of them had like the big championship, but Rhea was the women's champion. Finn and Damian were the tag champions, and Dom for a little while was the NXT North American champion.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
like he won that and pissed off everybody. That's again what feeds into the Dom heat in such a perfect, good, beautiful way.
He's so perfect. I don't want to change him at all, because god damn do I love to hate him. Yeah.
So like I think there could be fun there of them, like Finn and Dom winning back from Awesome Truth. Like you had the moment of Awesome Truth win here at Mania. They don't need a long reign. They're not going to benefit from a long reign or anything like that. You kind of have them.
I will benefit from a long reign. More Awesome Truth segments, please and thank you.
You don't watch, you don't care.
That's true.
Our truth is great, because our truth also came back the same night as Orton and Punk, because he'd been on the bench for a while. He'd been out with injury for a while, and so yeah, he just coming back, like ingratiating himself, becoming part of like an unofficial part of the Judgment Day kind of thing, was very much like Sammy Uso 2.0. And it was beautiful and glorious. So loved that they had that whole thing. We have up next the match that tied us back up and brought you back into alignment. And the only thing we differed on here on Sunday, the Philadelphia street fight between Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, and the final testament of Karrion Kross and the Authors of Pain. And this was like, this ended up being like a very underwhelming and disappointing thing.
This is like the worst. This is certainly the worst match of night 2.
Yeah, if not the entire card for me.
You were really upset about the Authors of Pain.
It was fun them bringing in Bubba Ray as like the special guest referee. I was like, oh, that's a cool thing for a street fight. full ECW, awesome, great. And yeah, like they immediately pull out tables. They don't even let the crowd chant like we want tables. They just like Street Profits pulled them out like beginning of the match kind of thing. It was like awesome, like the final testament, like beating the shit out of Bobby Lashley with kendo sticks for a little while, was great. And then basically like the tides turned, and from then on it was over. Like the final testament never came back. Like, yeah, the Authors of Pain were taken out by Montez Ford doing his, swan dive over the turnbuckle to the outside. And I kept waiting for that, like Karrion Kross pisses off Bubba Ray and they do the whole like 3D was up moment among, the Bubba Ray and the Bobby Lashley's team.
There's also that table botch where that table snapped earlier.
Yeah, that was the final bit. That was the final thing was the putting him through that table.
Shout out to Scarlett and what's her name going through that table. BFAB. Yeah, the two of them going through that table is pretty intense.
Yep. But yeah, it was just like, okay. Like
normally, if Bubba Ray's in a ring, if women go through a table and Bubba Ray's in the ring, my assumption is Bubba Ray put them through the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, the Authors of Pain had been out of the match for so long from that Montez Ford thing that I was like, okay, they're doing this thing, they're setting it up. Karrion Kross is gonna, be there, but they're gonna come in and like break up the pin or something, and then it just doesn't happen. It's like, no, they just got taken out by a dive to the outside in a Philly Street Fight match. These guys who were like such a dominant NXT championship duo, and then like got let go during the pandemic and then got brought back specifically to like join and create this faction with Karrion Kross. It's like, fucking why? Like they haven't done, like they've been feuding with Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits for so long. They were the other, like alongside the Legado del Fantasma LWO thing. It's like, all right, these are the two matches that feel like they could just be a Raw match or a SmackDown match. They don't have anything that makes them WrestleMania worthy. And this, like they never got out of that gear. Like the thing that makes the WrestleMania match worthy, I guess, for the other one was the bringing in the Philadelphia Eagle cameo and having that. And for this one, it's bringing in Bubba Ray. But beyond that, like this was such a nothing match.
Yeah.
That like was ruined well before that final table spot where the table broke before they could do the splash and they had to bring out another table and then finish the match.
I mean, for me, that was like, okay, on top of that, here's the thing. In NXT, the Authors of Pain, anytime they were down and out, their manager came out with a maneuver or something to give them the edge. I saw that man pull a chain out of his pants when he was suspended above the ring in a cage to give them the edge. Mm-hmm. He was right there to pull off Montez Ford?
Yeah.
Montez Ford to pull him off and like mess up that splash.
Yeah.
Did not do it.
Yep.
I'm like, this is not in his character. His character would not just be hanging around, not doing anything. He would be messing with them and constantly being a threat because that's what he is supposed to do. And it's like, damn, this is just not a well thought out match because it started off so promising and it just did not go anywhere decent, which is sad.
Yeah. It was also my argument why I picked the Final Testament to win was like, and they even kind of touch on this, like all of those people, including Paul Ellering, had never been in a WrestleMania before. Like this was their first WrestleMania. So it was like, okay, cool. Give them a cool WrestleMania moment. Street Profits have had WrestleMania moments. Bobby Lashley's had WrestleMania moments. They didn't need this. The
Final Testament needed it.
Final Testament needed this. So Final Testament losing here means like they are bottom of the barrel. Like why should anybody consider them a threat? Like they're nothing. Like I feel like Alpha Academy of like Otis and Tozawa should be beating the crap out of these guys because they're nothing. If especially like, yeah, the Authors of Pain just being wiped out by a dive to the outside. It's like, no, this was bad booking.
Tozawa
bad booking / bad producer.
You mentioned Tozawa, and you mentioned one of my favorite people because I love Tozawa so much with his little weights. It's so fun.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, disappointing and yeah, probably worst match of the weekend for me.
I don't know if it's here's my thing. I think it's is it a worse match than the Uso brothers match? Yes. But my disappointment.
The Usos are disappointing because they could have been better.
Yeah.
Like they're still like, it's still a good match, but it could have been a great match, and it's sad that it wasn't. Whereas this was always going to be just, a spot fest, weapons street fight kind of thing. But like,
it was a bad one of those.
It was a bad one of those.
If it's a bad one of those, it's just worse because why not just have it be a standard triple threat or like 3-man tag match? Like, why did it have to be this if you're not really going to commit to it? And it felt like there's points where like they really committed to it, but then there was just these, like you said, where were the authors of pain? Yeah. Where was any of these people? Like, it makes no sense long-term or even short-term booking, or even just in the match.
Like, I mean, you mentioned like Scarlett and BFAB going through the table. I feel like Scarlett justifiably takes more damage than the authors of pain in this.
Absolutely she does. Yeah.
Which is like absurd.
Which is why it's like, oh, I understand why she didn't interrupt anything.
Yeah. I get why she was still down there when they had to go under the ring for another table because the first one broke and she just hasn't moved. I get that. She went through a table. and that hurts. But yeah, the authors of pain who are just like hanging out in a corner and you were like, where are they? And like they showed the replay of like, yeah, here's the thing that took them out 5 minutes ago.
But where are like they didn't even show them on the ground.
Yeah.
It's like they just disappear. Now here's the thing:
it was very much it feels like they're actively not showing them, so it can be a surprise when they run in and break up the pin, and then they didn't do that. Or how the camera kept nope, you just lost.
The camera kept cutting away from their manager from showing up every time he was on the side, and at that ring post, ready to what I felt was like to interfere. They kept cutting away from it because they wanted to be a surprise, and they never go through with it. And it's like there's so many missed opportunities. I think that's the problem with this match is. There's a long list of missed opportunities. And then on the flip side of that, you have the Uso match, which is there's a long list of potential possibilities that never get executed on.
Yeah.
Both are bad in their own way, are disappointing in their own way. But this is definitely I think a worse like on paper, this is a worse match.
Yeah. Then we move over to LA Knight versus AJ Styles, which I think just some of the fun on this was just filling you in on the feud in the lead up to it.
I had no idea.
Of like, yeah, AJ Styles. The reason they're having this fight is because AJ Styles flew to Perth. He was not booked for Elimination Chamber, but he flew to Perth to sneak into the Elimination Chamber and specifically fuck over LA Knight from like winning a pinfall or something like that and taking him out of the match.
I'm just going to read my tweet. Yeah. I said, Trevor caught me up to speed on the feud of LA Knight versus AJ Styles. I dream of being a big enough hater to fly to Perth, Australia just to fuck someone over. Yeah. Also, the home invasion bit was great.
Yeah.
For me, didn't know anything about this match. I just thought it was like the Slim Jim promotion match, which it kind of was, but it ended up being so much more.
Yeah.
I was not expecting much. I just knew that their feud was because they hurt each other in a triple threat match against Roman.
And it was a 4-way because Randy Orton was the fourth in that match.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Fatal 4-way.
Fatal 4-way. Yeah, but they ended up messing with each other too much, and AJ Styles, I think, ate the pin for it, so he was pissed off. To be pissed off enough to fly to Perth, Australia, one of the most remote, like, populated regions that you can travel to on Earth. We have a friend from Perth, Australia. He always won. I've traveled the furthest to come to this place. Shout out to NATO. It is crazy how far and how hard it is to get to Perth, Australia.
Yeah.
AJ Styles flying there just because I had to eat a pin from Roman because you got thrown into the ropes is like a level of hater. Like the level of haterade that man drinks is enormous, and I respect it so much. And so yeah, this match was phenomenal. They like from the get-go, it is just they're at each other. There's no like normally an AJ Styles match, it starts off with a little bit of like amateur wrestling. None of that. Just they were both on full gas the entire match.
Yeah.
And it was great.
That's another thing. Like since, cause AJ was out for a while, last year too. And since he came back, like he's bulked up, and he's been a lot more aggressive and like he basically came back not fully heel, but very much like very quickly heel. And
when somebody is over
has just gone more and more heel. Like this was very much it sucks that LA Knight went from, fighting for the championship to having this match. It would have made more sense to throw LA Knight into the US title match, make that a 4-way or something like that. But, this gives LA Knight a win over former champion AJ Styles and stuff like that, especially as AJ is probably winding down. I think he's talked about this in interviews.
Yes, yeah.
He's probably, nearing the end of his career. So
this last injury was a big one for him. So.
Putting somebody over like LA Knight, who's, already extraordinarily over with the crowd. my thing was very much like, okay, he won this. He's got this nice win. Now let him take the title off Logan Paul. Like, let him be a U.S. champion. If that's, the summit that he's going to be, or, I mean, now that, maybe now maybe he can go up against Cody Rhodes or Damian Priest, whatever his side of the championship fuel he's on. And maybe they will hot potato and he can be a champion. And because obviously still incredibly over.
Insanely over.
Yeah. And my tweet was something to the effect of like, I'm not a huge fan of the Slim Jim, like over, but like all the Slim Jim stuff. But then I have to remember that they were the ones that got Vince to actually get forced out of TKO. Yeah. So, throw more Slim Jim shit on the screen. I don't care. Like,
thank you, Slim Jim, for basically being like, hey, we're your major sponsor.
Yeah.
We're pulling.
Yeah, we're going to boycott based on these allegations unless something gets done. And 12 hours later, Vince is gone.
Vince is gone.
Cool.
And also Vince is fully divested from TKO now. So
I think he's not. I think he's still got some. He's been selling off a lot of his shares in chunks, but I think he still has.
He's probably selling them as much as he's able to under contract.
Exactly. Yeah, like under legal limits, I believe he's been basically like getting rid of as much as he can.
That might be part of also like his like exit is he has to.
Sure.
Because it might have been like the termination of his contract means he has to divest.
Yeah. So we had the LA Knight, solid. Yeah. I mean, solid stuff from a couple of good workers. I wish knowing where they were going to go with, with the Bailey match, later, I wish they hadn't done so much of like LA Knight tweaks his knee stuff because it felt like, and it was much more natural in the Bailey stuff because of her history with injury and stuff. But I get that that's a shorthand of like, all right, let's say somebody tweaked their knee and then that becomes the body part that we, routinely attack.
It's a classic. It happens. Normally people talk about it and so you don't get two in one night, but
but then we move on to the U.S. Championship. Logan Paul versus Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens, triple threat. Just fuck Logan Paul and fuck Prime. Like that whole thing came out. And I was like, oh my God, I hate all of this. We touched it earlier. Like, I despise so much of that person. Before he ever got into wrestling, I despise that when he did get into wrestling, he was as good as he was in wrestling. I would have been perfectly happy if Bad Bunny were the best celebrity wrestler to ever, come through. Then Logan Paul comes in. It's like, oh God, fuck this guy.
Yeah, I think this
at least he's now playing into the fact that he's a heel and like owning that instead of trying to still be a babyface in his delusion.
I mean, it's crazy because this is a guy who is so polarizing. Like, and here's the thing, I'll also put it out if anybody's like, is this Trevor being old man Trevor? No. Like, there's legitimately very good reasons to not like Logan Paul, to not think that he's toxic and bad. And I think because he is. That being said,
there's absolutely an aspect of it that is old man Trevor, where like the first thing I really remember Logan Paul coming across my like radar on was the Suicide Forest stuff.
Yep.
Where he was already, a massive YouTube celebrity by that point.
But he was also a massive asshole at that point too. Like him in Japan up to that point, it's not like he was in Japan and it was like he was really respectful and everything. It was like the Suicide Forest was a culmination of him being an absolute asshat in Japan.
Yeah.
Just being a toxic, miserable asshole. And like that, and being like very like also racist in the country. So him, like he was already on my shit list for that. Basically also just like being an overall, like I'll never forget when he said, like when somebody told him the definition of a sociopath, he just goes, oh man, that just means you're savage. And it's like, I fucking hate you. Like he talked about like, I don't cry at funerals and stuff. And it's like, I don't feel anything. It's like, that's not okay. And he's trying to like be like, no, but I'm normal. Like everybody should be like that. And it's like, I don't think so. And then you get to this point where then he's
just like another fucking Andrew Tate.
Yeah. He was Andrew Tate before. There was Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
I will say on the flip side of things, he has done a remarkable job of like, not fully rehabbing that image, but also like I'm going to give him the credit where he's due. He is better than he was at that point when he said those things. That being said, he's still a massive asshole who moved to Puerto Rico for tax reasons. Now, he did help when they had their really bad hurricanes that really devastated the island. He did do like something for them, But that being said, he's still like a gentrifying asshole who is also just a massive prick and is not a good guy.
So it was very fun to see Kevin Owens and Randy Orton beat the shit out of him for a little while. And I would have absolutely loved if they had done the opening bit where they just took turns beating him even more. But then, inevitably they got to the point where it was like, all right, let's go pin him.
They went for the pin, yeah.
And then, I love the moment, though, and this is when I tweeted out, Kevin Owens is just one of the all-time greats in terms of in-ring banter. Because him just being like, all right, so we know we got to pin him eventually, but we don't have to pin him now. We can just keep beating him up longer. Yep. And was fully ready to do that. And then Randy tries to pull an RK on him, and they were like, all right, we're doing this. All right,
it's
fine.
the scorpion and the toad, man. It's the scorpion and the toad. You can't trust Randy.
Yeah.
You can't trust the Viper.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I will say, shout out, I did tweet out this, the casual workplace attitude Kevin Owens and Randy Orton displayed up to this point in this match was a tremendous amount of fun. Mm-hmm. The kind of so that's how you throw him up that high.
Higher. Yeah, let's show me. Do higher. Yeah, no, that was higher. That was better. I see that now. Yeah.
But then Randy goes, yeah, but I think it's because I'm taller than you, so I was able to get up higher.
Yeah.
And it was this very much this coworkers talking about work tasks and be like, well, how do you run this spreadsheet this way? What formulas are you using for it? Or oh, how do you boss told me I need to stock the shelves in this way. How do you do that? Very much this casual workplace attitude as they're beating the crap out of him.
I mean, they even carpooled to the ring together.
That was he was awesome. He's down there, the music plays, and he just goes, he stops and he thinks for a moment, and he goes in reverse, goes back and be
hop on.
Hop in.
right,
get in the cart, loser. We're going shopping.
It was very reminiscent to this is a Randy Orton that would not exist had he not been partnered with Matt Riddle for so long.
Absolutely.
This is very much the chilled out end of his career Randy Orton, who's just in here for a fun time, not a long time kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the case. 100%. This would not be pre Matt Riddle. Randy Orton would have attacked Kevin Owens on the ramp. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it is. And then he gets on the back of it and he rides down it. And
slow down.
Yeah, he goes oh, slow down. Because he's on the back of it. And it's just, they get down there and they're just buddy. And it's yep, no, this is great workplace style kind of attitude.
Logan Paul pushing KO into Randy, being you two fight. And then being no.
Well, I love
we're still going to beat
I love how Randy's what the hell? And he goes, he pushed me. And Randy goes,
oh, right. No, I did see that with my eyes.
Yes. I'm not going to go into a blind rage at this moment I've done in the past. It's no, okay, we can do this. And it's
all this said, we both predicted Logan Paul was going to win.
Yes.
It seemed the natural, he's too good of a heel. He brings too much visibility to WWE for them to just let him go here.
He just paid them a bunch of money to put his branding
on
their stuff.
He just threw Prime fucking everywhere on there.
Although there was a great spot where he said, drink Prime.
But when they had the moment with Kevin Owen coming through, mirroring what they did last night with Sami Zayn there at the end to be the final person to all right, now it's your turn kind of thing. I was oh my God. Yeah. If they did, they would never have to rely on the Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero moment. They could have a new moment of two best friends becoming champions kind of thing. That's not tainted by double homicide, suicide, because fuck Chris Benoit. And I was in that moment, I was oh man, I would love if they do this. I would gladly take being wrong and also fuck Logan Paul. I would gladly not have him as the champion. It would be so fun and so great to have that beautiful pairing of KO and Sami as the two mid-card champions, given their long lineage and history together.
I need people to understand what it was like sitting next to you and watching you as Logan Paul showed up on the back of that Prime truck. You were so.
Didn't I say I just want it to explode?
You did.
I just want that truck to somehow explode.
You're like that.
Cody's bus caught fire. Do that with the Prime truck.
Yeah, no, the whole thing about it was you're oh, I want that to explode. And I'm just casual, I just want him to die on that thing. I want him to be killed on that thing.
He doesn't need to be killed. He can be thrown from the explosion, but I want it to explode and I want him to feel and suffer pain.
That's the thing. People don't understand this. That would be something I'd expect me to say. Cause I'm flippantly I'm flippantly wanton to turn towards events of violence. Not in like a weird way, but just kind of like that person deserves to be. Anyway. But to see you as you're like preparing for Logan Paul's entrance and you're just sitting there silently, just like seething.
I mean, like, well, they started out where like we saw this very grainy, shitty, like live footage of him holding up some kind of selfie cam. I'm just like, oh, fucking whatever. What the fuck is this? And then we cut to the wide shot of this audacious prime truck. And I'm just like,
it's a monster truck.
It wasn't even a monster truck though. And it was like barely used as part of the end. Like he's just sitting on the back of this thing. They were like, oh, he's got the prime cannon. He's like, no, it's just a thing he's pointing, and then pyrotechnics are going off on the side. He's not shooting anything. Yeah. Like I was fully expecting it to be like, oh, they're gonna shoot prime water out at.
That's what I thought was gonna happen. I thought we were gonna like milk truck, beer truck moment.
And I'm guessing that's probably what he wanted, and they were probably like, safety hazard, we can't do that.
Yeah,
like this isn't the Attitude Era. We can't have Kurt Angle just shoot trucks of milk at people anymore.
Beer,
we can't have we can't have.
Well, that was also being done in the ring, not on the ramp.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing. I'll put it out this way. Also, you're just the quiet, like because you said what you had going on inside your head. You were silent. Mm-hmm. And the moment you broke that silence to want violence, something violent to happen, was such a shell-shocking moment for me. as your longtime friend, your roommate, somebody who's known you for several years, seeing you just like say something that I would expect myself to say in that moment, just like, oh, that, and for you, because normally if I said something like that, you'd be like, no.
Well, we don't have to wish violence.
Yeah, we don't have to wish violence.
I've probably said that.
You have said that before. You've said that to me before. That's why I'm like, this is so
or
weird.
We could go with a rational option.
Yeah. You're like,
I don't have rations on Logan Paul.
Yeah, no, you don't. And I'm like, people, this isn't just old man Trevor. This is legitimately Trevor just instinctively hates Logan Paul so much. And part of it is also like, yeah, he's just a damn great wrestler. Mm-hmm. Like it fucking sucks. He's so good at wrestling.
Yeah.
The same way that it fucking sucked that he was so good at boxing. Let me rephrase that. Good at celebrity boxing.
Sure, yeah.
Not real boxing. Because he never faced off a real boxer who was in his prime. Always faced retired dudes or dudes who were like doing it for the payday.
Exactly. Dudes who took the payday to not punch Logan Paul in the face.
I mean, like the whole goal was to still punch him in the face, but
Was it? Or was there something in the contract where they were just like, we're both going to make a lot of money?
No, I think
let's fix these fights.
I don't think it was fixed, but I also think like Logan Paul was fighting people who were like 30 to 40 years older than him, or like 20 to 30 years older than him.
Yeah,
like way past their prime fighters. Makes no sense that they would be like they did it for the payday. They were at it like they weren't in shape. I'll put it that way. As in fighting shape, they were in physical shape, but not fighting shape.
Yeah.
That being said, like Logan Paul's really damn good at it. He's a really good on paper. The person he is aside, he's a really great wrestler, and he's a really good heel champion for the U.S. title, which is a title that oftentimes has been regulated as like the C title. Like not even the B title, like not even one of at its peak.
Like the Intercontinental Champion is always like the workhorse title, and then the U.S. title is just also there.
Yep, it's usually like the fact that it only really benefits when there's a brand split tells you where it's at on because also the U.S. title, not a traditional WWE title.
It is a carryover from WCW.
Yeah, it's from WCW. That's where it's from. And so it's always had like that disdain, like that kind of like stain on it that this is from another promotion we brought over.
I would say Cena's the one who kind of made it like worthwhile when he had like his long U.S. title reign.
His like silver, like the silvered,
the spinning belt.
Yeah, the spinning belt, but it was also because like at that normally it was like his in particular was like silver.
Well, no, he had the spinner, and then it was also the like the U.S. Open Challenge, the John Cena Open Challenge.
The John Cena Open Challenge. I was thinking about his first U.S. title run.
Oh, okay.
Where he had it was like a silvered out belt. I might be misremembering that, but no, the Open Challenge, the U.S. Open Challenge, really did set the mark for this is the belt of opportunity.
Yeah.
Is what
which then KO ends up coming in and winning while he's still the NXT champion.
Yep. And that was
in a cool way.
Yeah, it was a really cool thing. That being said, so seeing this can kind of continue its kind of pedigree of being the person who has this has it for a reason.
Yeah.
And so that's good to see. What's next match? We've talked enough about this one.
Yeah, Bailey and Io Sky next as our semi-main. Bailey was very much the like this was one of those that like it would have been weird to let Io win here. Wouldn't have put it past them, especially if it was like kind of like Bailey started Damage Control to raise up some talent from NXT in Dakota Kai and Io Sky, and I feel like that never like it was a slow start for them in general before they finally started winning some gold. Then Io won the Money in the Bank and then eventually kind of the title. And then they brought in the Kabuki Warriors and they kind of became the tag team champions. But by then, like, this had kind of already started morphing away from just Damage Control. And then even there, Io hasn't had a lot in the way of like a memorable reign or memorable like championship matches because they've basically been doing like Bloodline Light, but with Damage Control, where it's been like, well, somebody spits mist and that's what ends up giving Io the advantage or something. So it had been building to the split, and very much like Bailey was the front runner to win the Women's Royal Rumble to face off against Io and like cement that split. So like storytelling, everything made perfect sense, and then basically lost to the back burner because of all the Cody and Roman and Rock stuff.
Yeah.
Like it feels like Bailey kind of got robbed of like she wasn't part of the WrestleMania press conference despite being the women. Like they set up Rhea versus Becky, who had not won the Women's Elimination Chamber match, but it like that basically made it a foregone conclusion, and Bailey's nowhere to be found in that. So she very much was frustratingly like an afterthought in this Mania,
which is crazy that her match then is like the second to last one.
Yeah.
Like it honestly, if you had told me, hey, like Becky, Rhea, Io, and Bailey went to Triple H and said, hey, you should swap our matches, like our match placements, I wouldn't put it past any of those women to do that.
Sure.
Probably in response to Bailey's not part of the press conference. Io is barely any promotional material at all. There was a very big difference. As somebody who is not paying close attention, being constantly reminded of Rhea Ripley, but not Io Sky in like marketing stuff.
Yeah.
Was a big thing.
Yeah.
And I think that leads to a lot of like, there's a lot of things you could say about that.
I think that's part of the alluded to like racism and kind of racist overtones of like why they weren't getting pushed as much. I think is also a factor of like why, especially once Kairi and Asuka came into the picture with Damage Control and it became a Japanese heavy faction. I like that they played into that at points, and like the big Bailey like making the turn and like leaving Damage Control, being a smart babyface. Yeah, like she says something in Japanese. Yeah, I learned because I've been working with you all. I know what you've been saying about me behind my back, kind of thing. It was like great, smart, like makes her a smart babyface. Wonderful. It was also like that moment. She came out, like launched Damage Control in all white, and she left Damage Control in all white. Was a beautiful like symmetry to her costuming through it all. So like the story was there and just like wonderfully executed. Just didn't get featured. It lost airtime because of all the other shenanigans going on that were sucking up the air in the room. So so I think, but at the same point, I think that also maybe benefits this match a little bit in that like it didn't have much to live up to, so it was always going to like exceed expectations. And Bailey, I think like it was one of those like probably one of the most predictable ones where Bailey's going to win. Yeah, they maybe give it to Io Sky to like let her continue her reign and Bailey kind of be giving in that. But but giving Bailey this big WrestleMania win, the last of the 4 horsewomen to really have a big WrestleMania moment kind of thing. I loved there was a tweet from Charlotte that was like, you know, honoring and celebrating Bailey's win there with the 4 horsewomen kind of like emoji or something like that.
I also want to say like there's a part of this also where like people forget how goddamn great Io Sky is. People always underestimate her because they think she's just a foreign wrestler. She was so dominant in as a tag team with Kairi Sane in NXT, and then as a solo performer afterwards. Her and Ember Moon's kind of like match rivalry for a long time was really, really great. And it is, people forget how dominant she is, and she getting to showcase it like the second to last match is brilliant, because we got to see her do really great. And she does the whole like thing Jimmy tried to do night one, but she does it better.
Yeah.
And she does it so much better. She's such a great start. Her entrance was phenomenal. Bayley's was weird until they explained that it was based off like the playground she grew up on, which is still like a weird thing to choose your outfit from.
It's a weird thing to not contextualize as it's happening and wait and contextualize it after.
Because otherwise it's just like, listen, if I could also be carried by like 6 hot, buff, shirtless dudes, I wouldn't be complaining.
And that was like, for me, I was just like, is this...
These are like, the new Bayley buddies, my guy.
I was thinking, like, is this supposed to be like an homage to like Triple H's entrances or something? Where like because like famously one of Triple H's entrances has like Charlotte and Alexa Bliss and I think Sasha Banks as like the women who were there kind of like to bring him out to the ring or something before they were all, you know, big NXT or main roster stars.
Yeah.
And so it's like, is that what this is supposed to be? And these are, you know, NXT talent or something like that as the like Anubis or whichever Egyptian.
Listen, all right. Was this fulfilling like some like mythology, like fantasy of mine? Absolutely. I'm with you, Bayley, 100%.
Sure. Yeah. It was like, I don't get how this ties into the role model thing, but I do appreciate that you didn't just throw papyrus as your text for role model.
Absolutely. Close, but not there. Like, don't get me wrong, Bayley, 4 shirtless, oiled up, hot guys. I get it. I'm there. I'm with you.
But the match itself, great.
Absolutely.
Great.
Oh, yeah. And then
Io the two.
But I want to say Io Sky's entrance. So fucking good. Her entrance song is so fucking good. And just like her like head banging the hood, going back and forth with her hair is wild and awesome and just ferocious. And it's everything about her as a character being displayed to everybody. And it breaks this language barrier. And then she's just this phenomenal performer. And she and Bayley just put on an absolute clinic. Yeah. It was great.
I tweeted out as much, but I love that Bayley and Drew got like their big wins here because for me they were very much the MVPs of the pandemic era. Like especially like so much of Bayley's character during that time was just like slagging off Michael Cole, and just like this absurd rivalry between the two of them formed, and like she just really like. Because she had gone heel, but like she just got to fully embrace and just be an entertaining heel. Her obviously she was doing a lot with Sasha Banks still at the time and stuff like that. And so it's just like she was one of the things that helped. Like she worked well in that environment, even when there wasn't a crowd to respond to, and so like same with Drew of like, you know, Drew being the champion for a good chunk of the opening of that era, like they were doing thankless work, and I'm glad that they're kind of getting their flowers here, in these forms, and yeah, Bayley's just like. She's one of the few wrestlers I actually like follow on Instagram and stuff. And she's just always out there, putting in the work, being a great advocate, always doing the stuff. And also I just love, I love her character when she's like fully committed to the character. I like that she didn't go fully back to like the Bayley buddies. Shout out to the crowd, you know, still embracing her and giving her old chants and stuff like that. And
well, they never stopped giving her those chants though.
I feel like at least during a lot of the damage control stuff, I wasn't hearing those chants in large part. People weren't cheering for her or whatever. They were, you know, cheering. They knew they were supposed to be booing her, kind of thing.
I think
so
the one place
they were embracing that they were booing her.
I noticed it was in England. I think they did it, and she made a big deal on social media
because England is always weird like
that. Also, I think it was also in Wales, which means Wales is an even weirder place than England.
Sure.
I say that as somebody who is very much descended from a lot of Welsh people.
Sure.
But
shout out to Bayley getting the win there.
Awesome. Awesome match.
Hope she has a great women's run with the
shout out to the new Bayley buddies. I like the direction she's going in with them.
Sure.
Really good.
And then we get into our final match, the WWE Universal Championship, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, which for a good chunk of this was a straightforward match.
Yeah, it was
between those two.
And a good match too. Like, damn, it was a good match.
And they set up that in that they just had Roman come down by himself. They didn't have, you know, him come down with the rest of the bloodline, the entourage and stuff. So it very much was like, okay, they're going to do their one-on-one stuff, and then at some point the shenanigans are going to start.
And the shenanigans, once they started, never stopped. They teased it. They're like, "Oh, we're getting the table out," and then Roman's like, "No."
Yeah.
And everybody's like, and it's Philly, so everybody hates him for it because he said no to tables.
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, Billy came down with Paul, of course, the wise man.
Yeah.
Shout out to that. Just great stuff. I saw a clip later after their WrestleMania of the two of them backstage, just like hugging the shit out of each other. Because this is it's been an amazing era. I mean, I know you have not been a big fan of it because he's not a defending champion. He's not a fighting champion.
I mean, the tribal chief Roman is the best version of Roman that we've had. I just think this ran too long. And I've never been fan. Like, I hated it when it was Brock and he was a part-time champ. And like, I was okay with Roman then as the face because he railed against that and said, you're a part-time champ. I want to be here. I want to be here day in, day out kind of thing. And so then when he became the thing that he'd been railing against, I was like, well, what the fuck? Like, no, like this title should mean something. It should be defended on a regular basis. They were like 1,316 days, and this is his 31st title defense. I'm like, that's not the accolade you think it is when you're telling me that he's only defended his title once every 42, 43 days or something like that. When they just kind of do away with the title needs to be defended once every 30 days kind of thing. And again, it also became that so many of his matches and defenses were just the same flavor of bloodline interferes and he wins. He hasn't won like a match on his own for the longest time, like with no interference or just like relying on just his ability and stuff. Yeah. And that's it. It just becomes frustrating and boring to watch as a result, I think. So, I mean, and the fact, like, it would have been fine if it was just one of the titles, but the fact that they put both belts on him for so much of that run, so much so that they had to create another world title, it was just like, that was a disappointing element of this whole reign. I won't deny that it had some of the best Rock or Roman things, and certainly like the reinvigoration that the Bloodline stuff has had since the Rock came in, and really ramping up all the Rock Cody stuff and the Roman Cody stuff following the Rumble, definitely like helps make up for the fact that the 9 months prior to that were underwhelming, disappointing post Mania last year. But this was not only everything I kind of expected it to be in terms of like, we're going to throw all the shit at the wall. Yeah. We're going to have all sorts of shenanigans and run-ins and stuff like that. But it was also a nearly flawless execution of that kind of match. Yes, it was. The two big changes that I mentioned I would have made. I wouldn't have had Cena AA or
you wouldn't have had Cena AA.
I wouldn't have had him hit Roman, so that you could still have like Cody is the only one who's putting Roman out to pasture kind of thing. And then for me, and I imagine it was probably vetoed by Austin, and that's why it wasn't him, but like I would have had the glass shatter instead of the gong, because Undertaker and Roman don't have, or Undertaker and Rock don't have like
the WrestleMania
a particular like WrestleMania lineage that compared to the trilogy of epic Rock and Stone Cold matches. So like when you have, okay, shenanigans are starting, Jimmy comes out, so Jay's music hits and Jay comes down and takes Jimmy out, and they go up, and they have like their little fight up the ramp, and then off the ramp onto some tables, and boom, that's a more condensed and better version of what they did yesterday.
They covered those tables with black cloth, and so without the spotlight on them, looked like Jay was spearing Jimmy into like right off
the ramp.
Just off the ramp. Yeah. And it's the elevated WrestleMania one, so we're talking like 12 to 15 feet.
Yeah.
And just the panic that went through my heart, and then you hear the smash of the table, and you're like, oh, okay.
I mean, it's also like the angle we were looking at it. Yeah. It was very clearly like not angled to reveal that they were going out,
which is brilliant, tables. Just so good. But that
run-in happens. Then we have the solo run-in, which is is cut off by Cena's music coming down to pay off the Cena and Solo fight from Saudi Arabia last year. In a fun little thing. And yeah, like I had seen reports that was basically like, yeah, Cena might come, but he's doing Peacemaker season 2, so he can't really get too physical or anything like that. And so I was expecting it to just be like, he's going to come down, he's going to like chase somebody off, but no, he gets physical, he does some stuff. And then, so yeah, like the Rock music hitting once Cena has taken Solo out of the mix,
that
was
framing.
a fun moment. Or actually, when did we have, I guess, yeah, so Rock music hits, and then we had the Shield music hit, right? And it was like, what's, and I feel like
before we get to the Shield music, I want to say the Rock music hits, the camera's on Cena's face, and you see his face react to hearing the Rock's music, and all of a sudden you see like the flashbacks to all the WrestleMania events with the Rock.
The once in a lifetime. Just kidding, twice in a lifetime with the Rock and
once
Cena,
in a lifetime. Twice in a lifetime, but also like the Rock fucking him over into the Miz winning his first ever championship. Like long history of these 2 minute WrestleMania, getting a culmination of that with the Rock, just like what the fuck are you doing in my ring? Just also wearing like this immaculate outfit.
Yeah. Super Hollywood Rock kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Super Hollywood, final boss Hollywood Rock. And then,
then we get the Shield music hit, and it's like, oh, this is an interesting choice. Listen, what's going on?
I think for a hot second,
I was like, there's no way they brought. There's no way Moxley / Dean Ambrose came in for this, or could come in for this, or something like that. What is this? And then it ends up being Seth, who comes in and is immediately taken out by who took him out? Was it
Rock hits him, and then
no, Roman hit Seth and just took him out.
Yeah, because he's about to come up behind the Rock with the chair, and then Roman takes him out with the spear.
Yeah, or so, like he does
Superman
something.
Punch. He Superman.
Yeah, he Superman punched him, and just So like, we catch the tail end of that, and we just basically see Seth like with a chair, but like on the canvas
shield
kind of thing, in Shield gear, and it's like, so okay. So something that like it feels like something was amiss. Either that should have been a bigger moment, and maybe Seth couldn't do it after, maybe he's too hurt or something. I don't know. But like it feels like we should have seen more of that. We should have seen Seth coming through the crowd or something, or we should have seen something of that. Because it just ended up feeling like, oh, well, that was a weird thing. And then we get the gong, and yeah, as I said, like I would have much rather had that be the broken glass, shattered glass, and Austin come down, stun Rock, and then leave Cody and Roman to finish their. Yeah,
that's also like a long distance to get. Like I can understand Steve saying no to that. Like Steve doesn't move fast enough to make that like work for Steve.
I mean, it could have done the same thing of like
the ATV.
The glass shatters and he comes from behind. Like he was at the. I mean, he could have drove a beer truck down or something like that. Sure, anything. Like I'm just like that would have gotten an infinitely bigger pop than
absolutely would have.
The gong. The gong going to get a huge pop, obviously, but yeah, Undertaker coming, like lights going down, lights coming up. Undertaker's there behind Rock in like American Badass, whatever, but then just kind of sweats. I was like, this feels like this was like an also ran idea of like, well, Undertaker's here for WrestleMania things. Austin said no, so yeah, let's throw him into this.
Listen, the only thing more final than the final boss is death.
Sure.
And he does the awesome Undertaker thing of where he takes him to hell. No, sorry, that's Kane. Kane takes people to hell. The Undertaker takes them somewhere else, and we've never been told where.
Purgatory.
And then shout out to The Rock showing up after the match is over, and it's like, oh shoot, he got out of there. Good for him. He made it out.
Where was he hiding? Just off camera, kind of thing. Yeah, that's a weird thing. Like I want to see what like audience footage of that sequence is, because like was Rock hiding somewhere, or is he just off camera?
They're both under the ring,
and we're made to think that they were gone.
That's not. I don't think that it was possible for the Undertaker to get under that ring. There's no way that man in that condition, he could barely choke slam The Rock.
I mean, he could probably get down there. He would have to like wait until they bring like clearance cart. Like it'd have to be like there's a mattress under there for him to lie down in while they clear the ring and do all. Especially because like all the post match stuff they did. But finally Cody finishes the story. Thank God. Because they're like I tweeted out basically before the show, like if they didn't have Cody win tonight, that would have been a booking mistake in my mind, on par with Austin turning heel at WrestleMania 17, which by most accounts ended the Attitude Era and turned away so many, like it basically like audience fell off a cliff after that. Because they liked face Austin. They liked the Austin that was against Vince McMahon all the time. So when he gets in the deal, when he makes the deal with the devil, it's like, no, this isn't what we want. And even Austin is like, yeah, I should have stunnered Vince after that handshake. And you know, what a different world would we be living in, kind of thing. But
We'd
yeah,
still be living
Cody
in the
winning
Austin
here,
era.
beautiful moment. Gets the celebration with a bunch of the wrestlers from the back. Brandy's in there, his mom's in there. Beautiful moments. And shout out, I love that, like the bloodline basically like, lick their wounds and leave, let Cody have kind of this big celebration thing. I'm curious if the cameras were supposed to stay rolling for all of this, or if this was because this very much felt like a thing that happens, after the title card goes off or something like that, and would just be for the Philly crowd. But yeah, that was WrestleMania. Any other thoughts? Any final thoughts on the match there?
Yeah, my final thoughts are it was a solid match. It became this pop fest at the very end. Great stuff. Obviously, Austin would have been a better thing for The Rock, but obviously didn't happen. Dean showing up would have been a better thing than Seth showing back up. Didn't happen. And it's fine. And we got a great hey, this is your moment from Seth to Cody.
Yeah, I like that too, because there was the other handing off the torch of it's your time now or something like that.
And you get all of kind of Cody's allies throughout this bloodline feud saga coming out. Sammy, Randy, a lot of other folks coming out.
Jimmy, LA Knight. I mean, it was the faces from the night, basically. Yeah,
faces from the night, but also faces from this kind of ongoing bloodline saga, which is great. We want to see those people come out there. You said it was a la reminiscent of Bret Hart in the locker room coming out. It really is this sort of feel good moment. It sent us home, and then Cody kind of pulls an audible saying, "Get me Pat Patterson and
Bruce Pritchard."
Oh, so Bruce Pritchard and Triple H. Get them down here because this is our era now. And this is the new era, and this is it. And Triple H comes down there, and as I loved you said, they don't know when to cut the camera because the person directing them is currently down there.
Yeah.
Such a theater stage manager type comment to make.
Well, I mean, my first comment was Triple H going in for the handshake pedigree. But of course, my
response,
not going to happen.
My response is his heart would explode.
Yeah.
That man is never going to do an extraneous thing again in his life.
I mean, I feel like running WrestleMania and running the WWE is probably pretty stressful in and of itself, but yes, doesn't need the physical stress there. Wonderful Mania all around. Yeah, like I said, I think I preferred just the matches overall on the first night, but the second night wasn't nearly as weak as I thought it was going to be going into tonight, apart from the Philly street fight, which just ended up being a big old fart. Because the Authors of Pain stuff.
I don't know. I'm split on which night I think is better. Because I feel like there's so many matches that I enjoyed from the first night, but also at the same time I feel like the second night was just really, really solid outside of the Philly street fight. So it's tough for me to say. If I'm thinking about if we want to talk WrestleMania moments, I think night one had more of them. But yeah, I think overall this is the first time that I'm now convinced a 2-night WrestleMania works.
Okay.
This has made me a believer that 2-night WrestleMania is a good idea.
I've been a fan of the 2-night WrestleMania since they started doing it, largely because WrestleMania had just gotten too long.
It's
the one where it did culminate with Becky winning. Suffered, I think, because it was the end of a 7-hour show and just that crowd was dead. The best match of that show ends up being Kofi Mania because it happens in the middle of the card. The audience isn't drained yet. The audience isn't exhausted. And so, yeah, I think the 2-night Mania, the fact that, like, again, like, we're here in Phoenix, so our Manias started at 4 p.m. our time and we're done by 8. I was like, nice. We like, you know, we're recording the podcast here post Mania, and I'll get this edited and uploaded, and it'll be ready for the Monday morning podcast. So yeah.
Overall, like, I think it was a really stellar. Like, this has now made me a fan of it. I'm now convinced this is the right way of doing it. We get more matches. We get them more spread out. We get more, like, there's more energy during the matches now, especially from the crowd. It makes sense. I'm a believer now. So.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, maybe they don't need to do it in super cold places where the audience is going to be dealing with that kind of nonsense.
The wrestlers are going to have to deal with that nonsense. Holy crap.
Yeah. Well, wrestlers are at least going to be, like, warmed up. I did. I felt so bad for Samantha Irving last night, seeing her come out and do stuff. So I very much appreciate seeing, like, a clip of her announcing "and new" for Sami Zayn from yesterday, where she's, like, bundled up in like 2 coats. Yeah. I was like, okay, so in between her being on camera, she was taken care of. Good.
So, like, and one of the things was, like, Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, and Corey Graves were, like, in their, like, regular, like, really nice spiffy suits, and then they cut back to them later in the show, and they all have overcoats on at that point. And it's like, yeah, that was cold. It was a cold, rainy day, and in Philadelphia.
Yep.
So
in Philadelphia in early April. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That Nerdy Site Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about the WrestleMania experience that we enjoyed the last couple days. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, a massive shout out to you, kind of like finishing your, like, doing your own version of finishing the story of Yakuza Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. You're wrapping up that series. We're doing 4 episodes a week now to make sure we can get through them, and then I mean, it's been fun. It was fun seeing you play through it because you had a lot of joy doing it. It was, like, definitely a fun time for you to be playing through that game. So getting to kind of see these come out now, and as you're just able to kind of, like, release them and be done, I think is great.
Yep.
So.
Cool. Yeah, you follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. In addition to that, go check out youtube.com/thatnerdysite for the Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth Let's Plays that, we added in Saturdays and Sundays to get this series wrapped up here in the next couple weeks. But then also go check out That D Plus Show, where we talked about Disney's Wish on this last week's episode to coincide with that coming out last week. So, you can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Since neither of us won the predictions, we're just going to go and enjoy Portillo's at some point and on our own dimes and whatnot, and just have a good, fun, old-fashioned Portillo's hangout. If you like what you heard, once again, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. As always, thank you for listening. Stay nerdy, be good to each other, and go finish your story.